Beneath layers of earth and centuries of silence lie secrets that defy logic, ancient ruins that shouldn't exist, artifacts carved with symbols no one can decipher, skeletons buried in ways no culture ever recorded. These aren't legends. They're real documented discoveries that scientists still can't explain. What knowledge was lost or hidden, and who or what left these mysteries behind? Today we explore the most baffling enigmas that continue to haunt the world of archaeology. Buried for thousands of years in the acidic peat bogs of the Ural Mountains, a colossal wooden figure lay forgotten beneath the surface until its accidental discovery in 1894 shocked the world. Named after the swamp where it was unearthed, the Shigir idol is not just a prehistoric artifact, it is one of the most mysterious and astonishing relics of ancient human culture ever found. Estimated to be at least 10,000 years old and possibly even older, this wooden statue has puzzled scientists for over a century. But beyond its age and abstract carvings, one thing stands out above all: it is made entirely of wood, yet it hasn't rotted. In fact, it remains remarkably intact, defying everything we thought we knew about time decay and ancient craftsmanship. What do you think truly kept this wooden statue from rotting for over 10,000 years? Was it just a natural coincidence? Or did our ancestors understand the environment and materials far better than we ever imagined? Share your thoughts or theories in the comments below. We'd love to hear how you interpret this ancient mystery. The Shigir idol was carved from the trunk of a larch tree, a type of coniferous wood that typically rots within decades when exposed to air and moisture. Yet here it is still standing, after more than 10,000 years, its surface etched with geometric patterns and stylized faces that remain eerily sharp. Under ordinary circumstances, no piece of wood could survive such a long stretch of time. Even the most durable timber would succumb to fungi, insects, and the relentless march of time. So how did this fragile organic sculpture avoid total decomposition? The answer lies not in the craftsmanship alone, but in the peculiar chemistry of its burial site. The Shigir idol was preserved beneath a peat bog, a waterlogged and oxygen-starved environment filled with acidic plant matter. These unique conditions created a kind of natural embalming chamber for the statue, halting microbial activity, slowing decay, and effectively mummifying the wood. Peat bogs have been known to preserve organic materials for centuries, but the preservation of a full wooden monument over 10 millennia is virtually unheard of. This wasn't just a stroke of luck, it was a rare convergence of nature and circumstance that protected one of humanity's earliest artistic expressions from the ravages of time. Even more astonishing, modern CT scanning has revealed that the core of the statue is still structurally sound, with no signs of rot or collapse. The larch tree used to make the idol was already over 150 years old at the time it was carved, meaning the tree itself began growing more than 12,000 years ago, at the end of the last ice age, when woolly mammoths still roamed the Eurasian steppe. The fact that ancient humans chose wood, a perishable, fragile medium, as the material for what was likely a sacred or symbolic object speaks volumes. They could not have known that the peat would preserve their creation for eternity. This suggests either a deep connection to natural materials or perhaps an urgent ritualistic or cultural reason that compelled them to carve quickly, using what was immediately available. The Shigir idol is not a crude piece of carving. Despite its immense age, the figure stands over 2.8 meters tall and is believed to have once been over 5 meters before parts of it were lost. It is the tallest known wooden sculpture of the ancient world. Etched along its front and sides are a series of enigmatic motifs, zigzag lines, chevrons, lozenges, and stylized faces. Some scientists interpret these symbols as proto-writing or early codes of communication far older than the earliest Sumerian cuneiform or Egyptian hieroglyphs. Unlike stone carvings that dominate most of prehistoric art, the use of wood in this context shows a level of sophistication rarely attributed to Mesolithic cultures. It challenges our assumptions about the intelligent spirituality and artistic capabilities of prehistoric people. If they were capable of creating such a detailed and symbolic monument from organic material, what else have we lost to time? Simply because it rotted away. Dating the Shigir idol wasn't just an archaeological milestone, it was a shock that shook the very foundations of our understanding of art history and symbolic thinking in early humans. Initial radiocarbon tests in the 1990s suggested the statue was around 9,500 years old. But in 2018, a new round of analyses stunned the scientific community. The wood used to carve the idol was dated to 11,600 years ago, meaning it was created just after the end of the last ice age. This makes the Shigir idol more than twice as old as the Great Pyramid of Giza and 7,000 years older than Stonehenge, a time gap significant enough to rewrite our entire narrative about the cultural development of humanity. The Shigir idol emerged in a time when humans were still nomadic hunter-gatherers with no agriculture, no permanent settlements. According to previous logic, this era was considered primitive, a time when symbolic or artistic expression was thought to be impossible. Yet the Shigir idol, with its monumental size, intricate carvings, and clear symbolic intent, defies that assumption completely. It proves that abstract thought, ritual practices, and even organized belief systems could have existed long before people learned to farm or build cities. The Shigir idol is not merely an ancient statue, it is a spiritual imprint from a pre-literate era, a fossil of the early human mind, frozen in time and delivering a powerful message to us today. Imagination and symbolic thought did not emerge with civilization. They have been with us all along, even when we lived deep in the forests among wild beasts. The Shigir idol is a gateway to a long-forgotten world, a world where people had no writing, no cities, not even domesticated crops yet, were capable of creating a work of astonishing symbolic depth. We do not know who carved this statue. We cannot say for certain what it represents: a deity, a guardian spirit, a ritual map, or a cosmic symbol. But one thing is clear: the people who created the Shigir idol viewed the world through the lens of symbolic thought, and they invested time, perhaps even a lifetime, into engraving meaning into matter, using tools and imagination far beyond what we once believed they possessed. The fact that a wooden artifact, a fragile, perishable material, has survived to this day is a powerful reminder of the lost treasures of prehistory. For every object like the Shigir idol that endures there, may be thousands made of wood, leather, or fiber that have vanished, taking with them stories we will never hear. The Shigir idol is therefore more than an artifact. It is a living message from a time before writing, before organized religion, before cities. It reminds us of one essential truth: the human imagination and the need to believe did not begin with civilization. They have always been there, quietly alive, in the ancient forests, carved into wood, waiting to be found. The Shigir idol forces us to reconsider what we think we know about early humans. Not only were they physically capable of great craftsmanship, they were mentally capable of abstraction, symbolism, and belief. And in one of the greatest ironies of archaeological history, they chose wood, ephemeral, soft, mortal wood, as their messenger, and yet somehow it survived. Do you believe there are ancient stone walls so old? No one knows how they were built. No blueprints, no tools left behind, no clear signs of human hands, just massive stones fitted together so tightly that not even a razor blade can slip between them. High in the rugged Andes Mountains of Peru, three ancient sites, Machu Picchu Sacsayhuaman and Ollantaytambo, guard a mystery that has puzzled historians and engineers for centuries. How did a civilization with no iron tools, no wheels, and no modern machines construct structures with such mind-boggling precision that even 21st century engineers are left in awe? These walls aren't just impressive, they are works of obsessive perfection. Multi-ton stones were carved, shaped, tilted, and placed together as if assembling a mechanical puzzle from another world. No mortar, no cement, no adhesives, and not a single visible gap. Every surface is smooth, cold, and utterly free of tool marks we recognize. Could this be the legacy of a lost technology, or perhaps a forgotten chapter of history where human beings once pushed the limits of what's possible in ways we can no longer comprehend? So, what do you think really happened here? Did the Inca possess a technique that modern science has yet to rediscover? Or is it simply a feat of unparalleled craftsmanship and patience? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Whether you believe in scientific explanations or have a more radical theory, your perspective could be part of solving this enduring mystery. At Sacsayhuaman, the massive stone fortress perched high above the Cusco Plateau, visitors are left in awe by the sheer scale and precision of its construction. There is no mortar between the stones, no evidence of nails, hooks, or any kind of adhesive. And yet these blocks, some over 4 meters tall and weighing up to 100 tons, have remained standing for over 5 centuries, enduring the passage of time, harsh weather, and countless powerful earthquakes that have rocked the Andes. This is no accident. Each stone appears to have been cut with near-perfect precision, with every edge curve and protrusion fitting flawlessly into the neighboring blocks. The joints are not only tight, they form a shock-absorbing structure that has allowed the entire site to remain stable for generations. What's truly astonishing is that all of this geometric precision seems to have been achieved without any modern tools, no computers, no simulation software, and that makes this engineering feat all the more mysterious. What astonishes archaeologists is not just the size of the stones, but their completely irregular shapes. Unlike the standard square or rectangular blocks used in conventional brickwork, the stones at Sacsayhuaman and Ollantaytambo were carved with varying numbers of sides, sometimes up to 12 or 14, with many featuring curved, warped, or sharply angled surfaces. Even more strangely, no two stones are exactly alike, yet they all fit together with absolute precision, like pieces of an enormous three-dimensional puzzle, where even the slightest miscalculation could compromise the entire structure. And yet these walls have stood firm for hundreds of years. This suggests that the Inca must have mastered the techniques of measuring, shaping, and adjusting stone to an almost supernatural degree, despite leaving behind no known tools capable of performing such feats. One of the greatest mysteries that has puzzled archaeologists for decades is this: what did the Inca use to cut and smooth those massive stone blocks? According to all existing archaeological evidence, the Inca had no access to iron, steel, or any kind of hard metal tools capable of working with stone. Their toolkit consisted of stone tools, soft copper wood, and rope materials that seem utterly powerless against granite blocks weighing tens of tons. So how could they have created surfaces as smooth as glass and joints that were flawlessly curved and seamless as if cut by a modern laser, all without leaving behind any trace of tool marks, No saw cuts, no chisel lines, no tooth marks, no rough edges or burrs, only cold, polished, eerily perfect stone surfaces, as if the rock had once been in a molten state and cast into its final shape. Researchers have proposed many theories, yet none have proven fully convincing. Some suggest the Inca used softer stones to grind harder ones, but this would have been extremely time-consuming and unlikely to yield such precision. Others propose they used sand and water as abrasives, but that still doesn't explain how they created 12-sided stones that interlocked with flawless accuracy. A few even speculate that they heated the stone with fire to cause it to crack, yet no signs of scorching or thermal fractures have ever been found at the sites. A more daring theory suggests that the Inca may have used a plant-based compound to temporarily soften the stone, perhaps a resin derived from Amazonian plants, turning the rock into a clay-like state for shaping before letting it harden. While this idea appears in folklore and some minor experimental studies, there is still no solid scientific evidence to support it. What's truly baffling is that even with the help of electron microscopes, laser scanners, and advanced 3D imaging, scientists still cannot identify any marks that indicate cutting tools were used. No drag marks, no scratches, just silky smooth seams between colossal blocks, leaving us to wonder, could this be the trace of a long-lost technology, one that has completely vanished from human memory? The existence of these razor-blade-fit stone structures is not only astonishing, it raises a profound question. Could this be the remnant of a lost technology, forgotten, erased, or deliberately ignored? If the Inca truly relied only on stone rope and soft copper, then their skill and technical thinking far surpassed what we typically expect from ancient civilizations. But if they once used a technique that we no longer understand, then why has all evidence of it completely vanished? Could it have been a form of knowledge passed down only orally and eventually lost after the Inca Empire fell to the Spanish? Not only remarkable for their beauty and precision, the razor-blade-fit stone walls also possess extraordinary earthquake resistance. Thanks to their irregular polygonal design, the stones disperse seismic forces in multiple directions, allowing the entire structure to absorb shock without collapsing. While modern concrete buildings in Cusco have repeatedly crumbled during earthquakes, Inca stone walls have remained intact without a single crack, as if they were built to last forever. Even with modern technology like laser cutters, 5-axis CNC machines, and advanced 3D design software, recreating the Inca stone walls is still considered extremely difficult and costly. It's not just the massive size of the stones, but their irregular, non-repeating shapes that must fit together with perfect precision. As one NASA engineer once admitted, cutting a 50-ton stone with 12 complex curved faces that interlock perfectly, that's a nightmare for any mechanical engineer. And so the final question remains. Are we staring at evidence of a long-lost skill? Or is there something modern science still isn't humble enough to admit? Sacsayhuaman Machu Picchu and Ollantaytambo may not just be historical sites. They might be massive stone libraries preserving ancient knowledge that's patiently waiting to be rediscovered. On a fateful morning in 1922, under the scorching Egyptian sun, British archaeologist Howard Carter unlocked a gateway into a world that had slept undisturbed for over 3 millennia, the nearly intact tomb of Pharaoh Tutankhamun. Inside, the glittering gold of more than 5,000 treasures left the world breathless. But among the golden statues, crowns, jeweled rings, and ivory ornaments lay a small, seemingly modest object, a dagger sheathed in intricately patterned leather, its blade gleaming with a cold, silvery sheen. At first glance, it appeared to be nothing more than a ceremonial weapon. But when modern scientists examined it more closely, they were stunned. The blade was not made from any earthly metal, it was forged from a meteorite, a fragment that had fallen from space. And from that moment on, questions began to emerge. How could the ancient Egyptians, at a time when iron was still considered a metal of the gods, not only possess, but also skillfully shape a blade made from extraterrestrial material? Could this be just another royal treasure? Or is it the surviving proof of a forgotten technology, one far ahead of its time? What do you think about this discovery? Was it simply a lucky treasure, crafted from a fallen piece of sky? Or is it proof that the ancient Egyptians possessed a level of technology we still don't fully understand today? Could there be forgotten knowledge, buried by time itself? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Every idea might be a missing piece in solving this ancient mystery. Modern analysis using X-ray fluorescence XRF revealed that Tutankhamun's dagger blade contains high levels of iron, Fe nickel Ni, and cobalt Co, with nickel concentrations reaching 10.8%, a ratio typically found only in iron meteorites. Remarkably, this type of alloy could not have been produced by artificial smelting techniques during the Bronze Age, a period when the ancient Egyptians had yet to discover how to extract or refine iron from ore. The presence of this rare extraterrestrial metal indicates that the blade was not forged from Earth-based iron, but was instead crafted from a meteorite collected after falling from the sky. In ancient texts, the Egyptians referred to this material as iron from the sky, suggesting that they may have recognized its sacred and otherworldly origin thousands of years before modern science confirmed it. Around 1330 BCE, during the reign of Pharaoh Tutankhamun, much of the world was still in the Bronze Age. Iron was not only rare, it was considered sacred, a material belonging to the gods, rather than for everyday use. The technology to smelt iron from raw ore had only just begun to emerge about 500 years later in the region of Anatolia, modern-day Turkey, and even then, it had not yet reached Egypt. In that context, the discovery of an iron dagger, not just its existence, but its exquisite craftsmanship, sharpness, and polished shine, is a historical paradox. How could the ancient Egyptians have worked with such a hard and rare material as meteoritic iron when they had not yet developed the necessary metallurgical techniques? What stunned scientists even more was the remarkable quality of the blade, its smooth surface, sharp edge, perfectly straight form, and total lack of corrosion or deformation after more than 3,000 years underground. These traits suggest that the blade was shaped using highly sophisticated techniques, possibly cold working, a method of shaping metal without melting it, which requires deep understanding of the material's properties and precise manual skill. Cold working high nickel iron like that found in meteorites is extremely difficult even with modern tools. Yet somehow, an ancient craftsman managed to achieve it. This raises a flood of questions among researchers. Could a nearby civilization with superior metallurgical knowledge have shared their methods with Egypt? Or did the ancient Egyptians once possess an understanding of how to process meteorite iron, only to lose that knowledge over time? An even more intriguing theory suggests that Egypt's royal artisans may have held secret sacred knowledge on how to tame the sky iron, not through smelting, but through elite hand-forging techniques passed down through generations. Tutankhamun's meteoritic dagger was far more than a weapon. It was a sacred symbol of cosmic power. The hilt was crafted from pure gold, intricately carved and inlaid with precious stones and colored glass. The sheath was adorned with divine motifs, such as lotus flowers, feathers, and depictions of deities, all closely associated with rebirth and royal authority in ancient Egyptian belief. In their worldview, meteorites were not merely rare metals, they carried the breath of the sky, regarded as materials sent by the gods. To craft and bury such an object with the pharaoh was not just a display of wealth, but a ritual of spiritual protection, meant to safeguard the king's soul on its journey to the afterlife. At the same time, it affirmed his right to rule as a divine gift from the stars. Tutankhamun ascended the throne at just 9 years old and died as a teenager, leaving behind a short reign filled with mystery. Yet it is the meteoritic dagger buried with him that truly forces us to reconsider everything we thought we knew about ancient technology. It not only challenges the assumption that the Egyptians had no knowledge of iron, but also opens the door to astonishing possibilities. Could they have inherited esoteric metallurgical knowledge from a long-lost civilization? Or was it a gift from an external power, such as the Hittites or Mesopotamians cultures that may have once learned to work with meteorites? And the most important and unsettling question of all, have we underestimated the technological capabilities and intelligence of ancient civilizations? Though it has lain buried beneath the earth for over 300 years, Tutankhamun's dagger still retains a near-miraculous shine, not only from its extraterrestrial metal, but from the light of knowledge it reflects back at us. A small object buried with a young king, yet powerful enough to challenge our entire modern understanding of the past. It forces us to ask, were ancient civilizations truly as ancient as we believe? And deeper still, could there have been knowledge once held by humankind, only to be swept away by time and forgotten? While most eyes focus on pyramids or military conquests, it is this humble artifact, the dagger, that stands as a quiet bridge between Earth and the cosmos, between history and the possibilities we've yet to imagine. An old ceramic jar, a corroded copper tube, a rusted iron rod. At first glance, nothing remarkable. But when combined, they can generate electricity. Yes, electricity, from a device that is over 2,000 years old. You heard that right. Buried beneath the dry soil on the outskirts of Baghdad, archaeologists unearthed something many believe to be an ancient power source, something that shouldn't have existed at that time. The Baghdad battery has not only puzzled scientists, but also challenges everything we thought we knew about the history of technology. How could an ancient civilization have figured out how to build something that mirrors a modern electrochemical battery? What did they use it for? And why are there no written records of it in any ancient texts? This isn't just an archaeological artifact. It is an unsolved mystery, a silent question resting in a museum, waiting for someone curious enough to trace the clues buried by time for 2 millennia. Join us as we explore the Baghdad Battery, an ancient device that may have lit up a chapter of history we've never even read. What do you think about this strange discovery? Was the Baghdad Battery truly an ancient power source or just a coincidental design? Which theory do you lean toward? Electroplating religious rituals, medical therapy, or something no one has imagined yet? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's unravel this 2,000-year-old mystery together. In the 1930s, during an archaeological excavation near Qujut Rabua on the outskirts of Baghdad, Iraq, researchers uncovered an object that appeared deceptively simple, a small ceramic jar about 13 to tall. However, upon closer inspection, they discovered that inside the jar was a thin copper cylinder sealed at the bottom with bitumen. Inside the copper tube was an iron rod now heavily corroded with age. At first glance, the structure might seem incidental, but detailed analysis revealed that it closely resembled a modern electrochemical battery. What makes this find even more intriguing is that it was uncovered in a region once ruled by the Parthian Empire a flourishing, yet still largely mysterious, ancient civilization. The emergence of such a battery-like design in this historical context raises profound questions. Could this be evidence that the Parthians had discovered how to generate electricity thousands of years before modern science was born? When researchers conducted experiments with the jar, they poured mild acidic solutions, such as vinegar or lemon juice, inside. The results were astonishing. The device was capable of generating a voltage ranging from 0.5 to nearly 1 volt, enough to qualify as a small battery. This led to a bold hypothesis. If the structure was intentionally designed, then ancient people might have understood how to generate electricity thousands of years before the formal development of electrical science. To this day, what makes the Baghdad battery so famous and controversial is not just its resemblance to a modern battery, but the fact that no one knows exactly what it was used for. Although its structure contains all the necessary components to generate an electric current, the device's true function remains one of archaeology's most puzzling mysteries. Over the decades, scholars have proposed a wide range of theories, from reasonable to bizarre, but none have been definitively confirmed. The most frequently mentioned hypothesis is that it was used for electroplating. Some scientists believe the Parthians may have used the battery to coat metal objects with gold or silver by applying a weak electric current. In theory, electroplating is fully possible, with a voltage of around 1 volt. However, the problem lies in the lack of concrete evidence that electroplating techniques were known in this region. No wires, electrodes, or supporting tools have ever been found. Moreover, none of the excavated metal artifacts show signs typical of electrochemical plating, making this theory mechanically plausible but archaeologically weak. Another theory suggests that the object might have been an ancient medical device, similar to how the Romans or Greeks used electric fish or mild electric shocks for healing purposes. Using electricity to stimulate muscles, relieve pain, or improve circulation is a practice still applied in modern medicine. However, no ancient Parthian medical texts mention the use of electricity, and there's no archaeological evidence connecting the device to any kind of medical context. Thus, this idea remains speculative and lacks a solid foundation. One of the more intriguing and harder to dismiss theories is that the device was used in religious or ritual practices. In many ancient cultures, natural phenomena such as lightning, magnetism, or flashes of light were often associated with divine power. If a priest could produce a small spark or slight electric shock using this device, it might have been perceived as a manifestation of divine will. From an ancient spiritual perspective, even a minor electric reaction could have been considered a miracle. Yet again, there's a lack of direct archaeological evidence, such as ritual texts, illustrations, or temple remains, explicitly linking the device to religious usage. Finally, some conservative scholars argue that the object was merely a container for documents or valuable materials, and that the metal parts inside were coincidental. They suggest it may have been used to hold rolled parchments, while the bitumen seal served to protect the contents from moisture. However, this theory fails to explain why the iron rod shows corrosion typical of acid exposure, or why the container needed to be sealed in a way consistent with holding liquid. In summary, no theory is convincing enough to eliminate the others, and this ambiguity is what makes the Baghdad battery one of the most fascinating archaeological enigmas. Its design is just modern enough to baffle scientists, yet it lacks any supporting evidence to clearly define its purpose. It's precisely this gap between form and function that has turned this small ceramic jar into a symbol of a possible lost knowledge buried by time. Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, one fact is undeniable. The Baghdad battery resembles a modern battery in striking detail. It includes a positive terminal, the iron rod, a negative terminal, the copper tube, a container for an electrolyte solution, an insulating seal bitumen. Such a setup can indeed produce an electric current. The question is, did the ancients know this, or was the design simply accidental, serving a different unknown purpose? Like the ancient Egyptian carvings that resemble light bulbs, or the precisely carved stones in Peru that evoke industrial tools, the Baghdad battery is an out-of-place artifact. Many believe it's evidence that ancient people may have accessed advanced knowledge which was later lost due to war disaster or the collapse of civilizations. Today, the Baghdad battery is seen as a symbol of what we still don't understand about our ancestors. It fuels imagination, inspires new research, and reminds us that the history of science might not be as linear as we assume. Knowledge may have once existed only to fade away, leaving behind faint clues like this mysterious ceramic jar. The Baghdad battery is more than an ancient object. It's a question that hasn't yet been answered. It forces us to reconsider what we think of as modern knowledge. Whether it's evidence of forgotten ancient technology or a coincidence of design, its existence continues to challenge the intellect of the modern world. It all began with a storm dive and an accident. In 1901, a team of sponge divers battling rough seas off the coast of Antikythera, Greece, made an unexpected discovery. Beneath the waves, tangled in the remains of an ancient shipwreck, long forgotten by time, they found marble statues, amphorae, and something far stranger. Not treasure, not weapons, but a corroded, misshapen mass of metal and wood barely recognizable. At first glance, it looked like nothing but junk. But inside that eroded shell was something no one could have imagined, a mechanical device more sophisticated than anything seen for over 1,000 years. No one knew what it was. For decades, it lay quietly in a museum, gathering dust. Until the 1950s, when X-ray scans revealed the truth, gears, dozens of them finely crafted, precisely arranged, and clearly made with intent. Not art, not decoration, but a machine. And not just any machine, a computer built over 2,000 years ago. If you were the first person to discover that rusty chunk of metal, what would you do? Would you recognize it as something important or dismiss it as ocean junk washed ashore? And what do you think about the idea that a computer could have been built over 2,000 years ago? Share your first impression in the comments below. Let's start with the most mind-blowing aspect, the design of the Antikythera mechanism. Many now believe it was the world's first analog computer, a device designed not to compute in ones and zeros, but to model the heavens through the motion of bronze gears. Dating from around 100 to 200 BCE, this machine was centuries, perhaps a millennium, ahead of anything comparable. Inside its structure are over 30 bronze gears, all hand-cut with precision. These gears weren't random or decorative. They were mathematically calculated and interconnected to track the movements of celestial bodies, including the sun, the moon, and possibly the 5 known planets of the ancient world. There were dials, pointers, and inscriptions. Turn a handle, and the gears would rotate to simulate the sky. Turn it forward, and it would predict future eclipses. Turn it backward, and it would recreate the night sky of the past. In essence, this was a mechanical time machine. This was a manual calculator of cosmic cycles, built using an advanced understanding of gear ratios, planetary motion, and timekeeping. It wasn't decorative, it was functional, and it should not have existed, at least according to everything we thought we knew about ancient engineering. One of the most astonishing aspects of the Antikythera mechanism is its level of mechanical craftsmanship. The gears were not only handmade, they were cut with incredible precision, comparable to what we'd expect from modern machine tools, which were long believed to be inventions of the industrial age. Many of the gears have perfectly spaced triangular teeth with consistent diameter and alignment. Some gear assemblies were even stacked vertically, enabling differential motion, a technique still used today in modern car transmissions. Even more remarkably, the builder accounted for the irregular elliptical orbit of the Moon using a clever feature known as a pin and slot mechanism. This design allowed for variable rotation speed, a remarkably sophisticated function, requiring deep knowledge of both astronomy and mechanics. This leads to a profound question. Who built this device and how? If such technology existed in ancient Greece, then why are there no traces of similar machines? Was this the lost pinnacle of an advanced tradition of mechanical engineering, or the one-off masterpiece of a lone genius, someone whose vision reached far beyond their time? The Antikythera mechanism is not just a mechanical marvel, it is also a multi-layered astronomical calendar reflecting an astonishing understanding of cosmic time cycles. One of its most important features is the Metonic calendar, a 19-year cycle that synchronizes the solar and lunar calendars, forming the basis for complex timekeeping systems. In addition, it also models the Saros cycle, an 18-year period used to predict solar and lunar eclipses with remarkable accuracy down to the specific month. On the back of the device, several dials display the timing of eclipses, clearly distinguishing the type of event partial total, and even include Greek annotations indicating colors and astrological meanings, showing that the mechanism was not only a scientific tool, but also served religious and mystical purposes. Most fascinating of all, one dial tracked the cycle of the ancient Olympic Games, rotating every 4 years, a strong indication that this device was deeply intertwined with the political, cultural, and ceremonial life of ancient Greek society, far beyond a simple scientific calculator. When the Roman ship carrying the Antikythera mechanism sank into the sea in the 1st century BCE, it wasn't just a single artifact that was lost. An entire body of mechanical and astronomical knowledge vanished with it. For nearly 2,000 years afterward, no similar device ever appeared, and no written record mentions such technology, making the rediscovery of this machine a haunting silence in the history of engineering. This raises a profound question. Where is the rest? If this was the product of a long-standing technical tradition, then where are the blueprints, texts, or traces of the workshops that created it? Some scholars believe this is the last surviving artifact from a forgotten age of high technology, while others argue it could be the lone masterpiece of a single ancient genius, someone who inherited Babylonian astronomy, Greek mathematics, and possessed a mind centuries ahead of their time. Thanks to advanced technologies such as X-ray tomography, 3D modeling, and digital simulation, modern scientists have been able to see through the corroded layers and reconstruct the internal structure of the Antikythera mechanism. What they discovered went far beyond expectations. Planetary indicators for Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn appear to have existed modeled using ancient epicyclic orbits, a remarkably complex way of understanding planetary motion. This suggests that the device was not only capable of modeling time, but could also replicate the retrograde motion of the planets, requiring a sophisticated epicyclic gear system, unlike anything seen in other devices of the ancient world. However, over 2/3 of the mechanism is still missing, and with every new discovery, more unanswered questions emerge. To this day, the true scope and purpose of the machine remain one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of ancient science. The Antikythera mechanism isn't just old, it's revolutionary. It doesn't just hint at intelligence, it screams of lost mastery. It proves that ancient minds were not only capable of complex thought, but of building machines that visualized the cosmos. Machines that didn't reappear for over 1,000 years. This device defies the clean narrative of human progress. It suggests that we have reached great heights before, and perhaps fallen from them, forgotten them, and relearned them centuries later. In the end, the Antikythera mechanism is more than a tool. It's a symbol of ancient brilliance, a reminder that somewhere deep in our past, human ingenuity may have burned much brighter than we dare to imagine. Could the ancient Egyptians have seen the universe through a lens? It may sound impossible, but a growing theory is puzzling archaeologists and historians alike. Statues over 4,000 years old in Egypt, with strangely lifelike gleaming eyes, may be hiding a technological secret far ahead of their time. These are not just masterpieces of stone carving. They might be evidence that the Egyptians knew how to craft and use magnifying lenses, perhaps even an early form of the magnifying glass or telescope. If this is true, our entire understanding of ancient technology and humanity's ability to observe the cosmos might have to be rewritten. And it all starts with the mysterious eyes of an ancient statue. What do you think about this theory? Were those crystal eyes merely a stunning work of art? Or could they actually be evidence that the ancient Egyptians crafted lenses and understood how to magnify images thousands of years ago? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective. One of the most astonishing and widely discussed examples is the statue of Prince Rahotep and his wife Nofret, currently displayed at the Cairo Museum. Carved from limestone more than 4,500 years ago, these statues are not only impressive for their intricate facial details, but are particularly striking because of their incredibly lifelike eyes. The eyes gleam, seemingly reflecting light, with irises colored naturally, and even creating a sense of depth similar to living eyes. Researchers have discovered that the eyes of the statues were not carved from a single piece of stone, but were actually assembled from multiple layers of different materials, including volcanic crystal white quartz and even polished copper, placed behind the transparent layer to create reflective effects. The iris was meticulously hand-painted beneath a clear crystal layer, while the cornea was simulated using a dome-shaped lens. This complex construction goes far beyond mere decoration. It suggests that the ancient Egyptians weren't just trying to make the eyes look lifelike. They may have understood how to manipulate light, create depth, and enhance visual perception using transparent layers. In other words, they were applying the principles of optics. Could this be the earliest sign that they had knowledge of magnifying lenses? Some antiquities experts have made a surprising claim. The eyes of the Rahotep statue are not merely finely crafted artistic details, but actually resemble a miniature optical system. Upon closer inspection, the outermost layer of the eye is made from a convex crystal lens that allows light to pass through and slightly magnifies the image beneath, creating the eerie effect of the statue's eyes staring at the viewer. A visual illusion strikingly similar to the mechanism used in modern dolls' eyes, yet it existed more than 4,000 years ago. This raises a fundamental question. How could an ancient civilization, not known to possess knowledge of light refraction, have designed such a complex structure? Was this simply a result of artistic brilliance, or did the ancient Egyptians actually have practical knowledge of light behavior and lens making, even if they didn't express it mathematically like later civilizations? If so, then the idea that they may have crafted magnifying glasses or even rudimentary stargazing devices is no longer far-fetched. In addition to statues with complex eye structures, Many archaeological sites in ancient Egypt have uncovered transparent spherical stones, originally believed to be decorative items or protective amulets. However, some modern researchers have re-examined them through an optical lens and discovered something surprising. When light passes through many of these stones, produce a magnifying effect similar to handheld magnifying glasses with low power. In practical experiments, some of these stones were even used to read tiny hieroglyphic inscriptions, and the results showed that the details became significantly clearer. This opens up an intriguing theory. Could the ancient Egyptians have used these magic stones as visual aids, perhaps in medicine, fine craftsmanship, or even stargazing? If so, it would be compelling evidence that knowledge of lenses may have existed thousands of years earlier than previously believed. If we accept the possibility that the Egyptians understood lenses, then a more astonishing implication follows. Could they have built a primitive version of the telescope? The ancient Egyptians are known for their precise astronomical knowledge. From predicting the Nile's flooding seasons, tracking the cycle of Sirius, to aligning pyramids with celestial constellations. Some scholars propose that if the Egyptians could craft magnifying lenses, they may well have been able to create a simple star viewer by aligning two handcrafted lenses at the proper distance, much like a rudimentary Galilean telescope. However, no telescope-like artifact has ever been recovered from Egyptian archaeological sites, so this theory, while fascinating, remains speculative. Although the theory of ancient Egyptian lenses is fascinating, many archaeologists and historians strongly oppose it, arguing that it is merely an exaggeration. According to them, the lifelike eyes of statues, such as those of Rahotep and Nofret, are in fact the result of masterful sculpting techniques, not evidence that the Egyptians understood optics. They emphasize that in order to craft a true lens capable of focusing light, several advanced technical factors are required: high-purity materials, precise grinding and polishing techniques, and most importantly, knowledge of light refraction, none of which have ever been found in any ancient Egyptian texts or documents. Furthermore, analysis of surviving tools shows that the Egyptians primarily worked with copperstone and wood, with no evidence of manufacturing or using glass lenses or optical instruments like those developed in later Roman or medieval civilizations. Although no clear physical evidence of lenses has been found in ancient Egypt, supporters of the Egyptian lens theory argue that this does not mean they never existed. They point out that materials such as crystal glass or handcrafted lenses from antiquity are extremely fragile and prone to erosion or decay over time, especially in harsh environmental conditions and outside the sealed preservation of tombs. Therefore, the absence of intact artifacts cannot be considered definitive proof of non-existence. History has witnessed many ancient inventions once deemed impossible until physical evidence finally emerged. A prime example is the Antikythera mechanism from ancient Greece, a remarkably sophisticated astronomical calculator that was once thought to be fantasy until it was successfully reconstructed and confirmed as real. The theory that the ancient Egyptians possessed knowledge of lenses remains controversial. Yet the lifelike crystal eyes embedded in millennia-old statues challenge our assumptions about ancient intellect. They prompt us to ask, are we underestimating the ingenuity of the past simply because they left no written instructions? These statues, with their reflective, depth-rich and optically structured eyes, still seem to watch us from the distant past, as if to say, there are things you've never imagined. Deep within an ancient quarry in South Africa, as layers of billion-year-old rock were being excavated, no one discovered fossils or treasure, but instead something far more unsettling: small metallic spheres, perfectly round, yet hiding a strangeness that defied explanation. No one expected that buried inside stone, formed 2.8 billion years ago, there would be objects with shapes almost perfectly symmetrical, complete with evenly spaced grooves around their surfaces as if they had been machined. Most astonishing of all, some of these spheres were said to be so precisely balanced that even the laws of physics seem to fall silent. They don't glow, they don't move. But it is this eerie stillness, this flawless balance, that sparked one of the most persistent scientific and archaeological controversies of the past several decades. Who or what created these spheres long before complex life even existed on Earth, and why do they possess a level of balance that even modern engineering struggles to achieve? If you discovered an object that could perfectly balance itself buried inside 2.8 billion-year-old rock, what would you think? A miracle of nature? A buried relic of an ancient civilization? Or something even more mysterious? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We want to know, do you side with the scientists or with the seekers of the unknown? Deep within the soft layers of pyrophyllite rock in South Africa, formed between 2.8 and 3 billion years ago, during an era when Earth was still shrouded in primordial darkness and multicellular life had yet to exist, miners uncovered objects that seemingly shouldn't exist, the Klerksdorp metal spheres, small in size, ranging from just a few millimeters to a few centimeters in diameter. They initially resemble simple marbles. But upon closer inspection, something strange becomes clear. Many are nearly perfect spheres, some slightly elliptical, and most notably, they feature concentric grooves that run evenly around their surfaces, etched with a precision that mirrors modern machining. Their surfaces are dark matte, and when touched, they feel dense and solid, as though they are not hollow at all. Some broken specimens reveal internal structures that are fibrous or honeycomb-like, deepening the mystery further. What puzzles scientists is not just the shape or composition, but the timing. Who or what could have created objects with such seemingly manufactured appearance at a time when complex life had not even emerged on Earth? Are these rare geological anomalies or forgotten evidence of a civilization beyond recorded history? That question has lingered unanswered for decades. The most astonishing aspect and the focal point of ongoing controversy surrounding the Klerksdorp spheres is not their shape or composition, but rather a physical phenomenon that seems to defy natural laws, the near-perfect balance exhibited by some of these spheres. According to an unofficial, yet widely circulated report from the 1970s, one of the specimens displayed at the Klerksdorp Museum of Science was placed on a slightly inclined sheet of glass. Surprisingly, instead of rolling down like any ordinary round object, the sphere remained completely motionless. No spinning, no sliding, no wobbling, as if it had somehow locked itself in place. Upon closer inspection, it was discovered that the sphere's center of mass was nearly perfectly aligned with its geometric center, allowing gravitational force to distribute evenly, an extremely rare phenomenon even in modern industrial manufacturing. In the field of mechanical engineering, producing a ball with an eccentricity of less than 0.01 millimeter level required for high-precision instruments demands advanced technology and rigorous quality control. So how could an object, believed to have formed nearly 3 billion years ago, possibly achieve such astonishing precision? And it wasn't just a one-off anomaly. Several other spheres also displayed uniform rotational axes, highly symmetrical shapes, and an unusually stable ability to remain balanced. While not all of them were flawless, the percentage of spheres reaching such a high degree of symmetry is far beyond what is known in any natural geological phenomenon. This has led many fringe researchers to argue that the Klerksdorp spheres cannot be mere products of chance, but are more likely the result of an intentional process, perhaps even one involving advanced technique or artificial selection. If this is true, then we may be confronting an artifact not only impossibly ancient, but one that directly challenges our current understanding of nature's capabilities and the very history of technological evolution on Earth. Since the 1980s, the mainstream geological community has provided a reasonable explanation. The Klerksdorp spheres are actually concretions that is naturally formed, mineral nodules created when minerals like hematite or pyrite precipitate in stable geological environments over millions of years. The grooves around their surfaces, they argue, are merely byproducts of mineral separation due to pressure changes or erosion from groundwater. However, skeptics are not easily convinced. They point out that the consistent symmetry of the grooves, the uniform roundness of the spheres, and the near-perfect balance observed in some specimens are all extremely unlikely to occur randomly in nature, especially when such features repeat across multiple samples. Some spheres even exhibit a steady rotational axis, behaving like a motionless gyroscope, a property never seen in known natural concretions. Because of this, several fringe theories have been proposed. Some believe these are technological remnants of a forgotten prehistoric civilization, while bolder hypotheses suggest they may be extraterrestrial artifacts buried during ancient cosmic events. This divide between science and mystery continues unresolved to this day. On the internet, the Klerksdorp spheres have become a widely circulated mystery, featured in countless videos, documentaries, and speculative blogs. Some enthusiasts claim the spheres are hidden proof of ancient intelligence, going as far as suggesting they were energy tools or prehistoric data storage devices. Within academic circles, however, most scientists maintain that there is no solid evidence to support the claim that these are artificially made artifacts. Yet, even among skeptics, there is quiet acknowledgement. The unusual symmetry and balance of some spheres remains insufficiently explained by current geological models. To this day, the Klerksdorp spheres remain an unsolved mystery. Are they purely natural, coincidentally possessing machine-like precision, or are they subtle remnants of something that existed long before recorded history began? Whatever the answer may be, the impossible balance observed in some of these spheres continues to shine as the most extraordinary aspect of the enigma. In a world where the Earth was still barren and lifeless, who or what left behind such flawless traces? Throughout the history and culture of the Western world, few symbols carry as much legendary weight as Excalibur, the sword of King Arthur. Excalibur is not merely an ancient weapon, it is the embodiment of supreme power of destinies chosen, and most importantly, the mystical bond between humanity and the supernatural realm. Mentioned in countless myths, epics, and literary works across centuries, Excalibur transcends the mere form of a sword to become an eternal symbol of legitimacy, courage, and divine strength, a power that only a truly worthy king can possess. What about you? Do you believe Excalibur was ever real, or is it just the perfect legend? If the sword truly exists, who do you think it would choose today? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear your theories, dreams, and even your doubts, because sometimes legends tell us more about ourselves than about history. One of the greatest confusions in Arthurian legend is the merging of two different swords into one, the sword pulled from the stone, and Excalibur. In fact, according to several versions of the Arthurian tales, the sword in the stone and Excalibur are entirely different weapons. The sword in the stone represents a test of fate. Only one with the soul of a king could draw it out. Meanwhile, Excalibur is the true magical sword. later bestowed upon Arthur by a mysterious figure, the Lady of the Lake. This distinction reveals that Excalibur is not only a symbol of worldly power, but also a sign of the sacred bond between the king and the supernatural world, a covenant that transcends ordinary political authority. It is Excalibur's supernatural power that sets it apart from all other swords in history or mythology. Unlike ordinary weapons, Excalibur is not just a tool for battle. It is almost a living entity infused with ancient magic. In some versions of the legend, the sword is described as glowing with brilliant light, so bright that it can blind enemies, striking fear into their hearts before the battle even begins. Excalibur is also said to be extremely sharp, capable of cutting through any armor, no matter how strong the opponent. It never dulls, never rusts, and cannot be broken by conventional means. It is an unbreakable sword, a symbol of undefeatable force. But perhaps the most mysterious aspect lies in its scabbard, an often overlooked detail that holds life-preserving power. The scabbard of Excalibur is said to prevent bleeding even in mortal wounds, and to protect its bearer from death in battle. Merlin, Arthur's great wizard, once emphasized that the scabbard was more precious than the sword itself, for as long as the king possessed it, he was almost immortal in war. This made Excalibur not just a weapon of victory, but a vessel of life and endurance, sustaining Arthur's strength and reign through years of war. As many scholars have noted, this mirrors ancient beliefs in totems and protective magic, where weapons were not only for attack, but also for survival, reflecting humanity's connection to surrounding divine forces. The origin of Excalibur is not only mysterious, but also deeply sacred, as if the sword never truly belonged to the human world. It was forged by no blacksmith, tempered in no earthly fire. Instead, Excalibur rose from a still and silent lake, lifted high from the water by a mysterious feminine hand, the Lady of the Lake, a manifestation of ancient magic and power beyond human understanding. In the shimmering sunlight, the blade seemed to glow like a divine gift, offered to the one truly worthy. The Lady of the Lake was not merely the giver of the sword. She was its guardian, the keeper of fate, and the silent judge of who was worthy to wield such power. When Arthur lay dying, he did not choose to cling to the sword. Instead, he ordered the knight Bedivere to return it to the lake, a final act to end the cycle of power granted by the other world. As Excalibur touched the water, the lady's hand rose, once more grasped the hilt, and drew it beneath the surface as if it had never truly belonged to the mortal realm. To many, that moment was not an ending, but a promise that the sword still waits for the next worthy soul. Excalibur was not merely a weapon, it stood for absolute legitimacy. In every version of the legend, only one person could wield it, the one chosen by destiny to be king. Possessing Excalibur was not merely a physical triumph, it was a divine confirmation, as though nature and magic had placed their trust in a single human being. Thus, when Arthur wielded Excalibur, he wasn't merely the strongest man on the battlefield, he was the chosen one, the person who maintained harmony between the mortal world and the mystical realm. Though Excalibur is deeply rooted in myth, scholars have long debated whether it could have been inspired by a real historical artifact. Some theories suggest Excalibur may have originated from ceremonial Celtic swords or special Roman weapons revered by native tribes. The name Excalibur is believed to have evolved from the Latin caliburnus, eventually becoming Excalibur in Old French, reflecting a rich, layered linguistic journey mirroring the evolution of the legend across generations. Yet it is precisely this ambiguity that fuels Excalibur's enduring mystique. It is not limited by historical accuracy, it lives eternally in imagination, belief, and humanity's desire for just and noble power. No symbol in Western culture has endured as powerfully or as long as Excalibur. From Disney's The Sword in the Stone to cinematic epics like King Arthur: Legend of the Sword, this blade is always portrayed as majestic, mysterious, and imbued with unimaginable power. In video games, films, novels, even anime and comics, Excalibur appears sometimes as an ancient artifact, sometimes as the embodiment of ultimate heroic power. Today, Excalibur is more than just Arthur's sword. It is a universal emblem of righteousness, fate's calling, and the triumph of noble ideals over chaos. A colossal ship with no sails, no rudder, said to have saved all life on Earth during a global flood. Just a myth? Or was it a truly extraordinary structure that once existed? For thousands of years, the story of Noah's Ark has endured as a powerful symbol of faith, survival, and ancient wisdom that transcends time. Far from being a mere detail in the Bible, this vessel has become the focal point of endless debate among scholars, archaeologists, engineers, and skeptics alike. But what truly astonishes modern scientists is not the legend of the flood, nor the tale of animals boarding 2 by 2. It's the design of the Ark itself, a set of proportions remarkably close to perfection, proven to be optimal for staying afloat amid violent ocean conditions. How could someone living thousands of years ago calculate something so precise, on par with modern naval engineering? Noah's Ark may not just be an ancient story. It could be a technical mystery, a challenge to our logic, and perhaps a hint of an ancient intelligence we have yet to fully understand. What do you think about this? Is Noah's Ark merely a symbolic myth? Or could it be the remnant of an ancient engineering feat far beyond its time? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to know where you stand. Science, faith, or maybe somewhere in between. Although the most well-known version of Noah's Ark comes from the Bible Old Testament, where a global flood is sent by God to cleanse the world of corruption, similar motifs of a man warned by divine powers building a great vessel to save life are not exclusive to Judaism or Christianity. In ancient Mesopotamia, the Epic of Gilgamesh tells of Utnapishtim, who was warned by the god Enki of an impending flood and told to construct a ship to save humanity and animals. In Hindu culture, the figure Manu receives a warning from the god Vishnu to build a boat and protect the seeds of life. Stories of cataclysmic floods can also be found in Greek mythology, Deucalion, and Pira Chinese legends, Yu the Great, and the traditions of the Maya Polynesians, and even African tribes. What's strange is that most of these civilizations had no direct cultural contact, yet their stories share the same core structure: a great flood, a vessel, a lone survivor, guided by higher forces, and a new beginning for mankind. This has led many scholars to propose that such stories might reflect a collective memory of a real catastrophic event, one so massive that it left its mark on global folklore. At the heart of the Noah's Ark debate lies the ship's design and dimensions. In Genesis 6:15, the Ark is described as follows: "Make yourself an ark of gopher wood. Make rooms in the ark and cover it inside and out with pitch. And this is how you shall make it. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, its width 50 cubits, and its height 30 cubits. Using an ancient cubit measurement, 45.7 centimeters, this translates roughly to length 137 meters 450 feet, width 23 meters 75 feet, height 14 meters 45 feet. The ark had 3 decks, a side door, and a single window. When these proportions are analyzed using modern naval standards, what's astonishing is that the Ark's length to width to height ratio, 35:3, turns out to be exceptionally stable for rough ocean conditions. This very ratio is used in the design of large cargo ships today, which must remain stable in turbulent waters. In 1994, researchers from the Korea Research Institute of Ships and Ocean Engineering conducted hydrodynamic simulations using Ark-like ship models and compared them with various modern hull designs. The results were surprising. While not the fastest, the Ark's shape offered maximum stability and resistance to capsizing, making it perfect for a slow-moving vessel carrying heavy loads, exactly what Noah needed to preserve life, not to reach a destination quickly. Moreover, the Ark's design with no sails, no oars, and no rudder was incredibly simple and entirely at the mercy of the water. It wasn't made to go anywhere, but simply to stay afloat safely until the waters receded. This leads to a profound question. How could someone over 4,000 years ago design a structure with such ideal proportions long before the development of modern physics, naval architecture, or fluid dynamics? If one regards the Noah story as myth, the 35:3 ratio is a strange coincidence. But if it's historical, then either Noah or his culture possess knowledge that modern humanity only rediscovered in the last few centuries. In either case, the match is striking and deeply thought-provoking for anyone familiar with naval engineering. Another strange claim about the Ark is that it carried 2 of every kind of animal or 7 of each clean species. Whether taken literally or symbolically, this raises several questions. How could it house all animals, from the largest to the smallest, from polar to tropical species? How were they fed, cleaned, and kept in a suitable climate? How could Noah have even identified and paired them correctly in such ancient times? Some scholars suggest that Noah may have brought representative kinds rather than individual species, possibly ensuring enough genetic diversity to repopulate. Others offer more speculative theories that the Ark may have carried eggs, embryos, or even genetic material ideas that oddly parallel modern seed vaults or genetic banks like the Svalbard Global Seed Vault. Regardless of how one interprets it, the concept of preserving the Earth's biodiversity in a floating shelter during global catastrophe remains a powerful image, one that positions Noah's Ark as an early mythic symbol of ecological conservation. The Bible claims the Ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat today, located in eastern Turkey near the borders of Iran and Armenia. Towering over 5,000 meters, 16,000 feet, Mount Ararat is perpetually snow-covered and extremely difficult to access. Yet for centuries, expeditions have sought to find the Ark's remains. In 1959, a Turkish pilot captured aerial photographs of a boat-shaped formation over 150 meters long in the Durupanar site near Mount Ararat. Independent researchers, including Ron Wyatt, later explored the area and claimed to find petrified wood iron nails and other unusual artifacts consistent with a man-made vessel. However, mainstream archaeologists argue that the formation is a natural geological structure. Still, its striking resemblance to a ship hull at over 2,000 meters above sea level raises questions. Such a structure would not typically survive in a high-altitude environment unless it was cold, low oxygen, and undisturbed for thousands of years, conditions that Ararat provides. Today, the image of Noah's Ark has long surpassed religious boundaries. It appears in medieval paintings, children's books, Hollywood films, and even real-life theme parks. One of the most impressive reconstructions is the Ark encounter in Kentucky, USA, a full-size Ark replica open for tours, which draws millions of visitors annually. To many, Noah's Ark remains a symbol of hope and rebirth, while to others, it represents one of the great unsolved mysteries of human history, a blend of spiritual myth and scientific enigma that continues to challenge our understanding of the past. Whether you see Noah's Ark as a historical truth or a sacred myth, it endures as one of humanity's most powerful icons, a place where faith, science, culture, and survival converge. With its seemingly perfect design, global narrative parallels, and tantalizing archaeological hints, it remains one of the greatest enduring enigmas of our civilization. He conquered empires, reshaped continents, and died a living legend. But over 2,000 years later, no one knows where his body lies. The tomb of Alexander the Great, a man worshipped as a god and feared as a conqueror, has vanished without a trace. How does the final resting place of the most powerful man of the ancient world simply disappear? From stolen corpses to sunken cities, religious erasure to centuries of silence. This is not just a mystery, it's a ghost story written in stone, water, and fire. A tomb that refuses to be found. And perhaps that's no accident. What do you think happened to Alexander's tomb? Was it lost beneath the sea, buried under a modern city, or deliberately erased from history? Drop your theories in the comments. We want to hear your take on this ancient mystery. The tomb of Alexander the Great was not merely a burial site for a king, it was a symbol of a man who had been deified even in his lifetime. With a legacy that transcended civilizations, he was not only a military genius, but also regarded as the earthly embodiment of Zeus or Amun-Ra by the ancient Greeks and Egyptians. For that reason, his burial could not follow ordinary customs. Ancient records describe a funeral of overwhelming grandeur, his body placed in a solid gold sarcophagus surrounded by jewels, fine fabrics, and ceremonies that lasted for days. His final resting place was believed to be a magnificent mausoleum in Alexandria, the very city he founded and transformed into a beacon of Hellenistic culture in the East. For centuries afterward, the tomb was not just a memorial, but a pilgrimage site for the powerful. Roman emperors like Caesar, Augustus, and Caligula all visited not only to pay homage, but to associate their rule with the greatest god-king figure in recorded history. After his death in Babylon, Alexander's body was en route to Macedonia, the homeland of his dynasty, when it was intercepted by Ptolemy, one of his generals. Ptolemy seized the corpse and brought it to Egypt, ultimately laying it to rest in Alexandria. His aim, to transform Alexander's memory into a divine cult and cement Egypt as the heart of his own Hellenistic kingdom. Over the centuries, the tomb was reportedly relocated and even rebuilt multiple times. Initially buried in a grand sanctuary called the Soma or Sema, Alexander's body was eventually moved to a glass sarcophagus or possibly a crystal coffin under Roman rule. Even in late antiquity, it remained a revered site until it mysteriously vanished from historical records. By the 3rd or 4th century AD, mentions of the tomb fade. Gradually, no traveler describes visiting it anymore. No chronicler records its location. No relics remain. By the time Christianity took root as the dominant religion of the Roman Empire, Alexander's tomb had effectively disappeared from history. This is the most haunting question surrounding Alexander's tomb, and perhaps the greatest historical paradox of all. We're not talking about the grave of a minor noble or forgotten king. This is Alexander the Great, the man whose name once shook continents. His tomb was grand, well visited, and widely revered. And yet today, its exact location is completely unknown. So how could this have happened? Alexandria, the presumed site of Alexander's tomb, has suffered immense destruction over the centuries. Built near the unstable coastline of the Mediterranean, the city has been rocked by numerous earthquakes, tsunamis, and floods. Entire districts of ancient Alexandria now lie submerged beneath the sea. It's possible that the tomb was destroyed, collapsed, or sank buried beneath silt sand and rubble. If so, its remains could lie beneath modern streets, or even offshore, beneath the harbor, waiting to be rediscovered by underwater archaeology. As the Roman Empire transitioned into a Christian empire, symbols of pagan worship were increasingly suppressed. Alexander's tomb, by then a place of pilgrimage and semi-divine reverence, may have been viewed as heretical by the early church. Some believe the tomb was intentionally sealed, hidden, or even destroyed to erase its influence. The Christianization of Egypt led to widespread repurposing of temples, closure of shrines, and purging of non-Christian icons. The tomb may have been converted into a church buried beneath a monastery or left unmarked to fade into obscurity. Over the centuries, Alexandria suffered invasions, plagues, and political upheavals, from Roman civil wars to Arab conquest and Ottoman rule. During these turbulent eras, many ancient monuments were dismantled, repurposed, or simply built over. With the city's constant urban development, the tomb may now lie buried beneath apartment buildings, roads, or markets. In fact, scholars point to areas in modern Alexandria, such as near the Mosque of Nabi Daniel, where remnants of ancient royal structures might be hidden beneath centuries of construction. But without excavation rights or solid proof, the secrets remain out of reach. Another chilling possibility is this people simply forgot. In the centuries following Alexander's death, wars destroyed archives, oral traditions faded, and new religions reshaped collective memory. By the Middle Ages, the location of the tomb was no longer common knowledge. It's possible that the tomb survived longer than we think, just no one wrote about it anymore. History is fragile. Without documentation, even the greatest monuments can vanish. The tomb may have stood for hundreds of years until the last guardian died, the last priest was silenced, and the last map was lost to fire or decay. Even after more than 2 millennia, the search for Alexander the Great's tomb has never truly stopped. Modern archaeologists and historians have tirelessly scoured Alexandria and even far-flung regions. Many theories focus on the area beneath the Mosque of Nabi Daniel, long rumored to conceal ancient secrets. Other excavations have targeted Kom el Dika, a site of ancient ruins buried under the layers of the modern city, or areas near the Serapeum, once a massive Greco-Roman temple complex. Some more extreme hypotheses suggest that his remains were relocated to Venice, Iraq, or even Turkey. While no definitive evidence has yet been uncovered, the desire to find the tomb endures like a quest for the last great symbol of a heroic age. If one day the tomb of Alexander the Great were uncovered, it would rival the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb, or even surpass it. It would offer a direct connection to one of the most legendary figures in human history. Insight into ancient embalming Hellenistic rituals and early Egyptian-Greek religious fusion. Potential relics, artifacts, and inscriptions that could rewrite history. More than that, it would be the triumph of historical memory over time's erosion, proof that even the greatest mysteries can one day be solved. Until then, the tomb of Alexander remains an open question, buried beneath layers of stone, myth, and time. Where is it hiding? Will we ever find it? And if we do, are we ready for what it may reveal? It sounds like something out of science fiction, a weapon that doesn't fire arrows or hurl stones, but summons the sun itself as its source of destruction. More than 2,000 years ago, in the heat of a Roman siege, a lone genius in the besieged city of Syracuse may have done just that. According to ancient accounts, Archimedes, the legendary Greek mathematician and inventor, designed a mysterious system of mirrors capable of concentrating sunlight into a deadly beam, setting enemy warships ablaze from afar. No smoke, no flame, just sunlight transformed into fire by the mind of one man. But did it really happen? Despite centuries of fascination, no physical remains of this solar death ray have ever been found. No diagrams, no blueprints, just whispers from ancient texts and the haunting possibility that we may have lost one of the greatest inventions of the ancient world. The lost mirror of Archimedes isn't just a myth. It's a question that still baffles modern scientists, divides historians, and defies replication to this day. If real, it would be the first known directed energy weapon in human history, built not with steel, but with sunlight and pure intellect. This is the story of that mirror, its legend, its science, and why the world has never stopped trying to recreate it. But what do you think? Could Archimedes have really built a weapon that used the sun as its sword? Was this mirror a forgotten marvel of ancient engineering, or just a myth that grew over time? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your theory. Was it science legend, or something in between? What makes the burning mirror particularly fascinating isn't just the tale itself, but the fact that modern science continues to be challenged by its feasibility. For centuries, scientists, engineers, and even television programs have attempted to recreate the phenomenon of burning ships with sunlight, yet no one has been able to replicate it convincingly. This isn't just a question of optical physics. It involves precision manufacturing, perfect weather conditions, flawless coordination, and even battlefield psychology. So why has no one succeeded in recreating it under realistic conditions? One of the most well-known attempts to recreate Archimedes' mirror was conducted by the television show Mythbusters in 2004. They used 300 flat mirrors, each about 1 foot in diameter, arranged to focus reflected sunlight onto a wooden ship stationed several dozen meters away. While the team observed rising temperatures and even a bit of smoke, the ship never ignited. Their final conclusion, setting a real ship on fire using only sunlight, is virtually impossible, especially under the technological limitations of ancient times. A team from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, also attempted to test the idea more than a decade ago. Using laser-calibrated modern mirrors to maximize light convergence, something ancient Greeks could not have achieved, they did manage to ignite part of a wooden surface under ideal conditions, clear skies, minimal wind, and a stationary target. Yet even they admitted that this would be nearly impossible in a real battle scenario where ships would be moving smoke and chaos would be everywhere, and lighting conditions would be unpredictable. Even the modern Greek military tried their hand at replicating the weapon. In 1973, under the direction of Professor Ioannis Sakkas, a group of soldiers used 70 polished bronze mirrors designed to mimic ancient tools to focus sunlight onto a stationary ship 50 meters away. The result, the ship did ignite after several minutes. However, scientists were quick to note that the ship was completely stationary, weather conditions were ideal, and there was no simulation of battlefield dynamics. From this, physicists have concluded that recreating such an event under real-life wartime conditions is nearly impossible. It would require an enormous number of perfectly aligned mirrors, extremely intense sunlight, a fixed angle of incidence, and a stationary target factors that are nearly unachievable amid the chaos of an ancient naval battle. From a technical standpoint, the thermal energy generated by such mirrors would rarely surpass the ignition point of wood, especially with external disruptions like wind clouds or longer distances. Thus, the lost mirror of Archimedes has become a symbol, of a magnificent idea, one that likely surpasses the limits of practical reality. It feels like a vision of ancient science fiction, a brilliant mind, using the power of sunlight as a weapon, wielding nature itself like a blazing sword. What's most remarkable is that its inability to be fully recreated is precisely what makes the story so compelling. Had it been as simple as a catapult, it wouldn't inspire this level of fascination. But the fact that modern science still struggles to replicate it lends Archimedes' light weapon the aura of timeless genius. The question, did Archimedes actually build this, is no longer just about physics, it's about the boundaries of human ingenuity. Could one man truly have envisioned something that an entire civilization had never imagined? Or was this a posthumous tribute, a myth crafted to honor a man seen as a god of intellect? Some researchers propose that Archimedes might not have used the mirror to set ships on fire at all, but rather to dazzle or confuse enemy crews, or to ignite flammable materials near the ship's legends that were later exaggerated over generations. Whatever the truth may be, the lost mirror remains a powerful emblem of curiosity, imagination, and the eternal pursuit of knowledge. The lost mirror of Archimedes is more than just a missing artifact. It's a metaphor for human intellect, ahead of its time, for the audacity to harness natural forces, and for a scientific mystery that continues to defy resolution. It stands as a living thought experiment spanning 2 millennia. Each failed attempt to recreate it doesn't diminish the legend. Instead, it reinforces the idea that if anyone truly accomplished such a feat, they must have been a genius beyond their era. No one knows where they came from. No one has ever witnessed them being unearthed. And no ancient civilization has ever claimed to have created them. Yet 13 crystal-clear quartz skulls, meticulously carved to near perfection, now sit in silence across museum storage vaults and private collections, as if they stepped out of another dimension. They don't just resemble lifelike human skulls, they seem to carry within them the memory of a knowledge that belongs to no known era. From mystics and fringe researchers to archaeologists and even modern scientists, everyone is drawn to the strange enigma surrounding them. And amid all the theories about supernatural power, alien technology, or hidden libraries of wisdom, one question forces everyone to stop and reconsider. Why is there no physical evidence proving these skulls were ever discovered in the real world? Are they truly ancient relics, or a brilliant deception crafted to rewrite history itself? The story of the 13 crystal skulls is more than just an archaeological mystery. It is a crack in the foundation of what we think. We know, a reminder that what we call history might only be the surface of a deeper, unrevealed truth. Which theory do you lean toward? Are they genuine relics from an unknown ancient civilization, or just elaborate 19th century creations designed to manipulate human imagination? Share your thoughts in the comments below. You might be holding a crucial piece of this mystery. The first thing that alarms scientists is this: not a single crystal skull has ever been excavated in an official archaeological dig. There are no excavation logs, no field photographs, and no verified archaeological coordinates. The most famous skulls, including the Mitchell-Hedges skull, the British Museum skull, and the Smithsonian skull, all appeared through private collections or were bought and sold through artifact dealers in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. This is incredibly unusual when we're supposedly dealing with priceless ancient relics. In archaeology, the provenance of an artifact, its documented origin, is critical. An artifact without a traceable source cannot be accurately dated, placed within a cultural context, or assessed for historical value. And the 13 crystal skulls, ironically, have no confirmed provenance whatsoever. A prime example is the Mitchell-Hedges skull, the most famous among the 13. It was allegedly discovered by British explorer Frederick Albert Mitchell Hedges in the 1920s at the site of Lubanton, in Belize, an ancient Maya city. However, no excavation records from that time mention such a skull. In fact, independent investigation reveals that the skull was purchased at Sotheby's auction in 1943, and Mitchell Hedges bought it from an American collector, not from a dig site. The skull, currently displayed at the British Museum, was purchased in 1897 from an antiquities dealer in London, who himself provided no documentation of where or how it was found. A similar model at the Smithsonian Institution was sent anonymously in 1992. In other words, the entire origin trail of the 13 skulls is cloaked in fog. No archaeological evidence, no site coordinates, no written reports. All of them simply arrived in the hands of collectors via unofficial channels, a major red flag in archaeological science. So what makes people believe these are ancient relics? The key lies in their astonishing craftsmanship. Some skulls, such as the Mitchell Hedges specimen, are carved from a single crystal of quartz, an incredibly difficult material to work with without cracking it. The human skull form is rendered with detailed accuracy, eye sockets, nasal cavity cheekbones, and even a detachable lower jaw. This raises a haunting question. If these are not ancient, then who created them? And more importantly, why were they made with such intricate precision, leaving behind no trace or tool marks? The answers began to emerge with the help of electron microscopes and spectroscopic analysis. In the 2000s, researchers from the British Museum and Smithsonian Institution jointly examined multiple skulls using modern technology. Their findings, all skulls, bore signs of rotary tools, high-speed equipment typical of industrial polishing in the 19th and 20th centuries. Additionally, parallel micro-scratches, fine drill marks, and evidence of modern polishing compounds shattered any illusion that these could be pre-Columbian artifacts. In fact, some of the surface patterns matched jewelry-making tools used in Europe. The conclusion these crystal skulls could not possibly be authentic relics from ancient Mesoamerican civilizations. But if they were modern fakes, then why were they created with such laborious detail at great cost and with no obvious attempt to commercialize or profit from them? Beginning in the 20th century, people began attributing esoteric power to the skulls. The legend of the 13 crystal skulls claims that when all are reunited, ancient knowledge will be unlocked and humanity will gain insight into the cosmos consciousness and even the secrets of existence. Some spiritualists believe the skulls function as biological hard drives, capable of storing information through vibrational energy. Others claim they are tools for connecting with extraterrestrial civilizations that once visited Earth. This mystique is fueled further by the piezoelectric properties of quartz, a mineral capable of generating voltage under pressure, leading to speculation that the skulls can broadcast, store data, or even alter human brain frequencies. The 13 crystal skulls have appeared in countless films, books, and pseudo-scientific documentaries. A standout example is Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull 2008, where the skulls are central to unlocking alien technology and ancient civilizations. While fictional, such portrayals have deeply embedded the idea in public consciousness that the skulls are mystical or supernatural objects, despite scientific evidence to the contrary. It all comes down to one central question: where did they come from? If not from the Maya, and not from any known ancient civilization, then who made them? And why does history allow them to exist without a trace, as if they simply dropped from the sky? Could they be a sophisticated hoax by 19th century collectors during a time when Europeans were obsessed with exotic antiquities? Or might they be symbolic artifacts created by a secret group intended to provoke wonder rather than historical clarity? Or in a more daring theory, could it be that the true archaeological evidence has been hidden as part of a larger game? The 13 crystal skulls are more than just intriguing artifacts. They represent a deep challenge to our understanding of history itself. No archaeological origin, no written record, and yet they persist, mesmerizing, unresolved. And because no one can say with certainty where they came from, they remain a living mystery, one that stirs the imagination of millions and forces us to ask a deeper question. Is what we call history really the full story of what has happened? They were said to be carved by the very finger of God. They were once lifted by human hands on the edge between life and death as the earth trembled and volcanoes roared. They carried 10 sacred laws, commands that would shape the morality of billions for over 3 millennia. And yet to this day, no one knows what they truly looked like. The stone tablets, known as the Tablets of the Ten Commandments, are among the most sacred and mysterious symbols ever known to humanity. According to Scripture, they were personally inscribed by God Himself and handed to Moses atop Mount Sinai, a moment when mankind first touched divine morality beyond the bounds of earthly rule. They became the ethical foundation of Judaism, Christianity, and even Islam. Yet at the same time, they remain an unsolved mystery. After thousands of years, no one truly knows their original size, their actual shape, or even the kind of stone they were made of. Were they real? If so, where are they now? And why has something so powerful and central to our history vanished so completely from the physical world? The story of these tablets is not just a tale of religion, it is a journey to rediscover a sacred memory lost to time, a search filled with questions that even now no one can answer with certainty. If the tablets were real, what do you think they looked like? Rectangular or arched like in modern illustrations, small enough to hold in one hand, or large and imposing like a divine stone gate? And more importantly, do you believe humanity is worthy of seeing them again? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe the tablets truly existed, or were they simply a legend written to test the faith of mankind? According to the Bible, the first set of tablets was written directly by the finger of God and handed to Moses on Mount Sinai amid thunder smoke and divine presence. This makes the tablets the only sacred object in Scripture that humans did not touch during the process of creation, a symbol of absolute divine authority. Though the Ten Commandments appear brief and straightforward, the words engraved on those 2 stone tablets have served as the moral foundation for billions of people over more than 3 millennia. Commands such as do not kill, do not steal, do not bear false witness, honor your father and mother, and do not commit adultery may seem simple, yet they have profoundly shaped the concepts of right and wrong, good and evil across entire civilizations. Most notably, this marked the first time in history that a moral code was delivered directly from God to the people themselves, bypassing kings, rulers, or any governing elite. What many overlook is that the original tablets no longer exist. After Moses descended from the mountain and found the Israelites worshipping a golden calf, he furiously shattered the stones. He then ascended Sinai a second time, and this time God instructed him to carve new stone tablets himself, while God would rewrite the commandments upon them. This act created 2 versions of the tablets in history, sparking centuries of debate and speculation about how they may have differed. This is what elevates the tablets into true legend. There is no definitive description of their appearance, size, or even their precise material. Modern depictions, especially in paintings, sculptures, and films, often show the tablets as arched at the top, resembling cathedral doors or stone windows. But biblical scholars, historians, and archaeologists argue this shape has no basis in Scripture. In ancient Hebrew, the word used is lushot, meaning stone slabs, with no mention of their exact shape. Some experts believe the tablets were rectangular, about the size of a modern book, or tablet like an iPad, making them easier to carry. Others argue they were larger and heavier, reflecting the symbolic weight of divine law. A particularly intriguing theory from experts in ancient Babylonian law proposes that the tablets may have resembled dual covenant contracts of the ancient world, meaning each tablet held the full set of commandments, one copy for God, one for the people. If true, then the modern image of 5 commandments on each tablet may be inaccurate, and the 2 tablets were actually identical copies. Even the material of the tablets remains a mystery. Were they granite limestone from the Sinai region, or a rare type of stone capable of being engraved by the finger of God, and in what language were they inscribed, ancient Hebrew, or a divine script that only Moses could comprehend? This lack of archaeological evidence, coupled with the absence of any physical relics, only intensifies the mythos around them, making the tablets of the 10 Commandments perhaps the most iconic sacred object never seen by human eyes. After being given by God for the second time, the 2 tablets of the 10 Commandments were placed inside a sacred object of immense significance. The Ark of the Covenant, a wooden chest made of acacia wood and overlaid with gold, believed to embody the very presence of God among the people of Israel. According to biblical accounts, the Ark was not only the repository of the stone tablets, but also held supernatural power. Anyone who touched it without permission would instantly die. The Ark was carried throughout the Israelites' 40-year journey in the desert and later placed in the innermost sanctum of the Jerusalem temple. Then suddenly, it vanished from history. No one knows for certain what happened after the reign of King Solomon. Some theories suggest it was destroyed when the Babylonians conquered Jerusalem in 586 BCE. Others believe it was secretly hidden, possibly in Ethiopia beneath the Temple Mount, or taken somewhere no one has ever discovered. If the Ark of the Covenant and the original tablets were ever found, it would not only be the most groundbreaking archaeological discovery in history, it could also shake the very foundations of religion, science, and global political order. Fascinatingly, even though no one has ever seen the real tablets, their image has permeated global culture, from courthouse monuments and churches to films like The 10 Commandments, Indiana Jones, and National Treasure. They are no longer just religious icons, they've become emblems of sacred law, universal morality, and the eternal contract between humanity and the divine. Unlike the Code of Hammurabi, which was decreed by a king, the 10 Commandments were given directly from God to the people via Moses. This act helped establish the revolutionary concept that law should apply equally to all, a principle that would echo through centuries of legal and democratic evolution. If someone truly uncovered the real tablets, or claimed to, this would not just be a religious event, but a global shockwave. Would religious institutions confirm or reject it? Would governments reveal or suppress such a find? And would modern society even accept these ancient words as guidance for the future? It's these unanswered questions that ensure the tablets of the 10 Commandments remain not just a religious relic, but an eternal symbol of mystery, faith, and humanity's longing to reconnect with the sacred truths of our past. It has no confirmed shape, no verified location, no agreed-upon origin. And yet, for over 1,000 years, people have crossed deserts, descended into catacombs, decoded ancient texts, and risked everything for a chance to glimpse it, the Holy Grail. whispered in temples, hidden in riddles, immortalized in legend. Known as the Cup of Eternal Life, the Grail isn't just a relic. It's a riddle woven into the soul of Western civilization, promising healing, salvation, even immortality. But what keeps humanity endlessly fascinated isn't what the Grail might offer. It's what it refuses to reveal. Was it truly the cup that Jesus drank from at the Last Supper? Did it really catch his blood on the cross? Or was that just the first myth in a long line of illusions? From medieval knights to modern historians, from Vatican archives to Hollywood scripts, the search continues. But here's the truth no one likes to admit. To this day, no one has ever proven what the Holy Grail actually is, or whether it ever existed at all. And that single unsolved mystery might be its greatest power. What do you believe? Is the Holy Grail a real hidden relic, a symbol of spiritual awakening, or simply the most beautiful illusion ever told? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you think the Holy Grail really is, and why humanity keeps searching for it. Despite thousands of pages written and entire lifetimes spent in pursuit, there is no verified historical artifact that can be definitively labeled as the Holy Grail. No gospel mentions it explicitly as an object of power. The canonical Bible never refers to a magical cup with healing or eternal qualities. In fact, the entire mythos surrounding the Grail began centuries after Jesus' time, mainly through medieval literature and oral storytelling traditions, most notably in the 12th century works of Chrétien de Troyes, and later expanded in the Arthurian romances. This means that unlike many religious relics such as the Shroud of Turin or fragments of the True Cross, the Grail has no clear starting point, no verified archaeological trace, and no agreed-upon physical description. To some, it is a cup or bowl. To others, a stone, a book, or even a metaphor. Its identity is so fluid that scholars now believe the Grail may have never been intended to be a literal object at all. Over the centuries, the search for the Holy Grail has spun off into a dizzying maze of competing theories. Some claim the Chalice of Valencia, a cup held in a Spanish cathedral, is the original Grail, supported by medieval documentation and papal recognition. Others point to the Nanteos cup, a wooden bowl from Wales, believed to have healing properties. There are even claims that the Grail is not a cup at all, but a misinterpreted metaphor, perhaps referring to Mary Magdalene, the bloodline of Jesus, or ancient Gnostic knowledge. Some conspiracy theorists go even further, suggesting the Vatican is deliberately hiding the Grail or its true meaning. But with each theory comes an equally strong rebuttal. The historical evidence is always fragmentary, contradictory, or outright invented. Each supposed discovery crumbles under scrutiny or is revealed to be rooted in legend rather than fact. The Grail, it seems, only appears when one wants to see it and vanishes when one demands proof. This is the uncomfortable question at the heart of the Grail mystery. What if the Holy Grail, as a tangible object, never existed at all? Many scholars and theologians now argue that the Grail was born from allegory and symbolism, not history. In medieval Christian thought, the Grail may have represented the soul's quest for divine union, the unattainable purity of Christ, or the mystery of salvation. It was never meant to be found, but to be longed for. Its power lies not in its physical reality, but in its spiritual resonance. This interpretation is supported by the fact that the Grail legends vary wildly depending on the source. In some tales, it heals the wounded. In others, it blinds the unworthy. In some versions, only the purest knight may find it, such as Galahad. In others, it remains just beyond reach, always glimpsed but never grasped. The fluidity of its meaning strongly suggests that it is a literary and spiritual device, not an object to be catalogued and stored in a museum. And yet, despite this compelling line of reasoning, the world keeps searching. The power of the Holy Grail lies not in its certainty, but in its enduring ambiguity. It invites every generation to reimagine its meaning, to overlay their own fears, hopes, and questions onto its blank, shimmering surface. For Christians, it may represent the promise of salvation and eternal life. For mystics, it symbolizes inner awakening. For historians, it is a fascinating case study in the evolution of myth. For writers and artists, it is the ultimate plot device, a perfect object of desire that can never be proven, yet never dismissed. And for skeptics, it is a mirror reflecting the eternal human tendency to build great myths upon tiny fragments of truth. The Grail is in essence a paradox made solid, a thing everyone has heard of, but no one has ever seen. A promise written in air that somehow still drives people to cross deserts, dive into hidden caves, pore over ancient scrolls, and ask unanswerable questions. In our modern world of satellite imaging, genetic sequencing, and AI-enhanced historical research, one might expect the myth of the Holy Grail to fade. And yet it persists in novels, in films, in documentaries, and in countless online rabbit holes. Its very resistance to certainty is what gives it life. In a time when everything can be Googled, when facts are expected on demand, the Grail reminds us that not all mysteries are meant to be solved. Some are meant to be lived with, to act as reminders of the limits of human knowledge and the power of longing. Perhaps the true Grail isn't a cup at all. Perhaps it's the journey itself, the act of searching for something greater than ourselves, something that heals, elevates, redeems. A symbol that, like the divine, cannot be contained in any single form. The Holy Grail remains the most famous object no one can prove ever existed. It haunts the crossroads of faith and fiction, history and myth. It invites us not to look outward, but inward, not to demand answers, but to embrace the mystery. Whether you believe it's hidden in a cathedral, lost in a cave encoded in ancient texts, or simply a metaphor for the divine spark within the human soul, the Holy Grail continues to ask us the same question. What are you truly searching for? Before the fame, before the billions, before the world watched with bated breath, every 4 years there was one trophy that started it all. The Jules Rimet Trophy wasn't just a prize. It was a symbol of hope, unity, and the audacity to imagine a global game when the world was still at war with itself. Born from the vision of one man, Jules Rimet the dreamer, behind the World Cup, this small gold-plated statue would go on to ignite a sporting revolution and witness the most legendary moments in football history. But its story didn't end with glory. It survived war, escaped the Nazis in a shoebox, got stolen and sniffed out by a dog, and finally vanished forever under mysterious circumstances. What other trophy can claim a journey like that? This is not just the story of a cup, it's the story of how football found its soul and how it lost its most sacred treasure. Do you think the real trophy might still exist somewhere in the world, or has it truly been melted down? If it suddenly resurfaced today, what do you think FIFA should do? Don't hesitate to share your theories in the comments below. The Jules Rimet Trophy was more than just a prize, it was a work of art rooted in history and symbolism. Created by French sculptor Abel Lafleur, the trophy drew heavily from classical Greek inspiration. At its center stood Nike, the winged goddess of victory, gracefully lifting a cup-shaped vessel above her head, a powerful image of triumph that transcended sport. Measuring 35 centimeters in height and weighing 3.8 kilograms, it was made of silver coated with gold, giving it a radiant finish worthy of global glory. This iconic trophy was first awarded in Uruguay in 1930 during the inaugural FIFA World Cup, marking not only the birth of a new sporting tradition, but also the introduction of a symbol that would define generations of footballing dreams. During the dark years of World War II, as Europe descended into chaos and the shadow of fascism spread across the continent, the Jules Rimet Trophy faced the real threat of being confiscated or destroyed. In the face of this danger, an Italian football official named Ottorino Barassi took a courageous step. He secretly removed the trophy from the central bank and hid it in a shoebox under his bed in his Rome apartment. Thanks to his boldness and determination to protect this legacy, the trophy survived. The war endured those darkest days and continued its journey alongside the history of football. In 1966, just months before the World Cup was set to begin in England, the Jules Rimet Trophy was unexpectedly stolen, right in the heart of London. While on public display at Westminster Central Hall, the trophy vanished without a trace, sending shockwaves through the footballing world. British police immediately launched a massive search operation, but every lead came up empty. All hope seemed lost, until something truly strange happened. While out walking his dog in South London, a man noticed his pet Pickles frantically scratching beneath a bush. Upon checking, he discovered the trophy wrapped in newspaper hidden beneath the leaves. Pickles instantly became a national hero, celebrated on television, awarded medals, and even immortalized in statue form. Thanks to the heroic act of a dog, the trophy was returned just in time before kickoff, and in a twist of fate, England went on to win the World Cup on home soil, closing one of the most bizarre, fairy tale-like chapters in football history. But the most extraordinary and tragic part of the story came in 1970. In Mexico, the legendary Brazilian team, led by Pelé Tostão and Jairzinho, claimed their third World Cup title following victories in 1958 and 1962. Under FIFA rules at the time, any team that won the tournament 3 times earned the right to keep the Jules Rimet Trophy forever. Brazil became the first and only nation to achieve this. The trophy was brought back to Brazil as a national treasure, proudly displayed at the Brazilian Football Confederation (CBF) headquarters in Rio de Janeiro, placed inside a protective glass case, a symbol of eternal glory. But once again, fate intervened. In 1983, the Jules Rimet Trophy was stolen once more, and this time it was gone forever. Thieves broke into the CBF headquarters, shattered the glass, and vanished with the trophy. Despite a nationwide police investigation, it was never recovered. Evidence and confessions later suggested the trophy had likely been melted down for gold, even though it was mostly made of silver with only a thin gold layer. This was a heartbreaking and irreversible loss, not just for the footballing world, but especially for Brazil, a country that saw the trophy as sacred. An official replica was later made for public display, but the original, with its unique history, was lost forever. After the shocking theft in 1983, FIFA was forced to change its regulations regarding the ownership of the World Cup trophy. Beginning with the 1974 tournament, a new FIFA World Cup trophy was introduced, taller, heavier, and made of solid gold. But most importantly, no team would ever keep it permanently, no matter how many times they won. The trophy is now awarded temporarily during the victory ceremony, then retrieved and stored at the FIFA Museum. The lesson from the fate of the Jules Rimet Trophy made FIFA realize such global symbols should not belong to any one nation. They must be preserved as a shared heritage of humanity. Today, the Jules Rimet Trophy remains the most legendary object in football. Not just because it was the first, but because of its wild, almost mythical journey, hidden in a shoebox, rescued by a dog, and ultimately disappearing forever in a bustling city. It stands as a living symbol of football itself, a mix of triumph and tragedy, of glory and mystery. The Jules Rimet trophy isn't just an artifact, it's a piece of frozen history in gold and silver, a tale every football lover should know, remember, and cherish. More than 15,000 ancient rock carvings deep in the Sahara, and some of them look like astronauts, high on the blistering cliffs of Tassili Najar, where the desert winds whisper across time-worn stone, lies a forgotten gallery carved by prehistoric hands, one that should have only told stories of early human life. Hunting scenes, herds of cattle, ceremonial dances, all familiar. But then something strange emerges from the sandstone. Figures with round, featureless heads, bulky bodies, tube-like appendages, and eyes, if they are eyes at all, that seem to stare from behind some kind of mask. Discovered in the mid-20th century and dating back as far as 12,000 years, these artworks do more than document the dawn of civilization. They challenge it. Because some of these beings don't look human, and they never did. So what exactly was painted on these prehistoric walls? And more importantly, who? What do you think these figures really represent? Are they ancient gods, shamanic visions, or something far more otherworldly? Drop your theories in the comments below. We want to hear your thoughts. Among the vast collection of over 15,000 rock paintings and engravings discovered on the Tassili Najar Plateau, most depict scenes from the everyday life of prehistoric humans, hunting activities, livestock herding, religious ceremonies, and extinct animals. However, as researchers delved deeper into the images, a particular group of figures began to raise puzzling questions, shapes that look nothing like humans and that seem to belong to another world entirely. Some figures have humanoid bodies, but lack eyes, noses, or mouths. Instead, they possess smooth, circular, or oval-shaped heads resembling massive helmets. Their bodies are equally strange, short, bulky limbs, and in many cases, tube-like structures connecting from the head to the torso or extending down the back, strongly suggesting some kind of protective gear or life support system. These figures are often significantly larger than the surrounding human characters, highlighted with bold colors, and appear in ritualistic or ceremonial contexts. The most prominent of these is a figure known as the Great Martian God, a massive being with arms outstretched, a faceless round head, standing at the center of a group of smaller humans who are either bowing or raising their arms toward it. The entire composition evokes the feeling of a solemn act of worship, yet the central figure being venerated does not resemble a human at all. These images raise a profound and unsettling question rarely asked in mainstream archaeology. Did prehistoric people really encounter someone or something that the human imagination alone could not have conceived? It is precisely these strange figures in the rock art that have strongly attracted the attention of the ancient astronaut theorist community, those who believe that prehistoric humans may have once encountered extraterrestrial beings, and that rock art is the remaining visual evidence of those encounters. According to their reasoning, if an ancient person actually witnessed a being not of this world, they would try to depict it in the simplest and most direct way possible. And that is exactly what seems to appear on the walls of Tassili. From this perspective, the round helmets are no longer just religious symbols, but could in fact be actual protective headgear. The long tubes might represent breathing apparatus or energy conduits, and the entire bizarre appearance closely resembles a modern spacesuit. Strikingly, these beings are never shown participating in ordinary daily life, not hunting, gathering, or socializing. They only appear in ritualistic ceremonial scenes, often surrounded by humans who seem to be worshipping or offering reverence. And that's exactly what sends chills down the spine of many observers. Could these entities be gods, but not from Earth? It wasn't just one or two isolated cases. Archaeologists led by Henri Lot recorded at least 30 to 50 unclassifiable figures in areas such as Jabarantin Abutika, Sefar, and Tamrit. These figures shared some bizarre traits: round, featureless heads, large, heavy-set bodies, and they were often nearly twice the height of ordinary human figures depicted in the same scenes. What's even more intriguing is that they did not appear randomly scattered, but were instead clustered in distinct groups, as if arranged with deliberate intent. Some drawings even depict direct interaction between these beings and humans, pointing gestures, the exchange of round objects, or the beings standing in the midst of crowds who appear to bow or reach upward toward them. Such details raise an unsettling question. Are these simply ritual symbols, or could they be a record of an actual encounter between two entirely different kinds of beings? Of course, mainstream archaeologists do not support the alien hypothesis and instead offer symbolic or spiritual explanations. According to their interpretation, these strange figures may represent shamans in trance-like states, influenced by hallucinogenic mushrooms or psychoactive plants, a phenomenon documented in many ancient cultures. The bizarre round helmets could simply be ritual masks, while the tube-like attachments might be symbolic details not meant to be taken literally. However, these theories face a significant challenge. If the figures were merely abstract symbols or visions under altered states of consciousness, why is the style of depiction so consistent across dozens of different cave sites? And why is it that only one particular group of humanoid figures is drawn in this strange fashion, while the rest, including both humans and animals, appear relatively realistic and proportionate? There's no denying that the rock art at Tassili is among the most powerful and mysterious visual evidence ever discovered. These are not abstract symbols or vague sketches. They are clear, intentional images carved or painted directly onto stone, with a level of detail that continues to astonish modern researchers. What makes the ancient astronaut hypothesis even more compelling is the age of these artworks, as old as 10,000 years to 12,000 years, which means they predate the rise of the first known civilizations like Sumer or ancient Egypt. If an advanced intelligence truly set foot on Earth, even for a brief moment, then it's entirely possible that the rock carvings at Tassili are the last surviving traces of a memory long forgotten by human history. What do you believe? Tassili Naja is an archaeological treasure, a visual record of human life from thousands of years ago. But the strange beings appearing in some of these drawings cannot be easily dismissed by conventional explanations. Are they depictions of ancient gods, sacred spirits, or visitors from the stars? Buried deep beneath the sands of Egypt, inside a forgotten tomb in the Valley of the Kings, lay a man who shouldn't have been there. When archaeologists broke the seal of Cave 55 in 1907, they weren't prepared for what they found. No golden mask, no royal fanfare. Just a mutilated coffin, a defaced burial, and the strangest mummy ever uncovered in Egyptian history, a man with unnaturally pale skin and hair that had turned a golden blonde. He didn't look like a typical Egyptian. He didn't die like one. And even in death, someone tried to erase him from history. Was he a foreigner, a disgraced ruler, or the most controversial pharaoh Egypt ever produced? What began as a dusty tomb quickly unraveled into a biological riddle, a dynastic scandal, and a genetic warning, all written in ancient bone. What do you think really happened here? Was this man truly Akhenaten, the heretic king erased by history? Or could he have been someone else entirely, a lost prince, a genetic experiment, or even a political scapegoat? Drop your theories in the comments. Do you think the blonde hair and pale skin were real, or just a trick of time and mummification? And what does his erasure say about how dangerous his memory truly was? Let us know what you believe. We're reading every comment. When tomb KV-55 was discovered in 1907, it offered no clear answers, only deeper questions. Inside, archaeologists uncovered artifacts linked to the Amarna period, one of the most turbulent chapters in Egyptian history, when Pharaoh Akhenaten sought to completely overturn the nation's religious system by replacing polytheism with the sole worship of Aten. The objects in the tomb clearly connected to Akhenaten, his mother, Queen Tiye, and even Kia, a mysterious consort. However, all identifying inscriptions had been deliberately erased. Most strikingly, the coffin appeared to have been originally crafted for a woman, complete with sculpted breasts, which had been brutally hacked away to make it appear masculine. The burial mask had been destroyed beyond recognition. It seemed clear that the individual buried here had been intentionally erased from history, as if his very existence was considered dangerous. But the greatest question remains: was this truly Akhenaten, Egypt's cursed and heretical king, or someone else entirely? One of the most controversial aspects of the mummy found in tomb KV-55 is its highly unusual appearance. According to the accounts of early archaeologists, the mummy's skin was extremely light, almost pale white, something rarely seen in any Egyptian mummy ever discovered. Even more strikingly, traces of hair still clinging to the scalp appeared light blonde, nearly platinum in color. This discovery led many to speculate that the individual might have been a foreigner, perhaps from northern kingdoms like Mitanni or Anatolia. Meanwhile, some scientists argued that the blonde hair and pale skin were byproducts of the mummification process. Long-term exposure to salt natron and embalming compounds could have bleached darker hair over thousands of years. Whatever the cause, the image of a white-skinned, blonde-haired pharaoh became etched into the public imagination as a deeply mysterious symbol, one that continues to fuel debate to this day. The true identity of the mummy in tomb KV-55 has remained at the center of archaeological debate for over a century. While physical evidence and artifacts strongly suggest a close connection to the royal family of the Amarna period, the exact identity of the individual remains a major mystery. Three main theories have emerged: that he may be Akhenaten, the revolutionary pharaoh who reshaped Egypt's religion, or Smenkhare, a mysterious ruler who reigned briefly after Akhenaten, or possibly a royal prince, perhaps a brother or cousin of Tutankhamun. The biggest complication lies in the age at death. Skeletal analysis indicates the mummy was a male who died between the ages of 20 and 25, while Akhenaten, if he truly was Tutankhamun's father and ruled for nearly 2 decades, should have died at 35 to 40 years old or older. Some scholars reject the Akhenaten theory, citing that the skeleton is simply too young. However, supporters point to a range of unusual anatomical features: an elongated skull, narrow frame, wide hips, and delicate limbs, which eerily match the distorted depictions of Akhenaten in Amarna art. Are these signs of a genetic disorder, or were they a deliberate form of divine exaggeration through artistic style? That question remains unanswered. The biggest turning point in the effort to uncover the identity of the KV-55 mummy came in 2010, when a research team led by Dr. Zahi Hawass conducted DNA analysis on royal mummies from the Amarna dynasty. The results were groundbreaking. The KV-55 mummy was almost certainly the biological father of Tutankhamun, and also the son of Pharaoh Amenhotep III and Queen Tiye. Based on this, the scientific community largely agreed that KV-55 must be Akhenaten. However, controversy persisted regarding the age at death. Skeletal analysis indicated the individual died at around 20-25 years old, while Akhenaten, given his long reign and role as Tutankhamun's father, should have been over 35. This left many researchers questioning, was the age estimate inaccurate, or is there a deeper hidden part of the truth yet to be uncovered? This brings us to the most disturbing and perhaps most revealing mystery of all the signs of extreme inbreeding and genetic breakdown in the 18th dynasty's royal line. Modern DNA analysis of the KV-55 mummy and Tutankhamun revealed multiple congenital defect signs that suggest the Amarna family tree was riddled with incestuous unions. For generations, the pharaohs of Egypt had married sisters, daughters, and nieces in the name of divine blood. But this effort to preserve royal purity may have become their undoing. Tutankhamun himself, the boy king, whose golden mask is now a global icon, suffered from a cleft palate clubfoot, scoliosis, and fragile bones. The KV-55 mummy also exhibited abnormalities, elongated skull, possible Marfan syndrome, fused vertebrae, and hormonal disorders. These are not random defects. They are signs of genetic collapse, symptoms of a family tree folded in upon itself. Akhenaten may have been both the father and uncle of Tutankhamun. The mother, known only as the younger lady from another mummy, has been genetically confirmed as his sister. The results form a clear and chilling image, a royal family genetically self-contained and medically deteriorating. This isn't just a story of one man in a tomb. It's a biological warning written in ancient bone, a glimpse into what happens when absolute power meets closed gene pools. As the 18th dynasty collapsed, the body of KV-55, whether Akhenaten or another royal, was hurriedly buried in a mismatched coffin, his name scratched off, his memory disowned. The religious revolution he led was reversed. The temples he built to Aten were torn down. His son Tutankhamun was propped up as a figure of restoration, but even he died young, possibly from genetic complications, malaria, or a fractured leg gone septic. The bloodline ended. The gods returned. The sands moved on. But KV-55 remains not just as a mummy in a box, but as the last biological echo of a collapsing dynasty whose quest for divine purity may have spelled their doom. If you're fascinated by how science and history intertwine to reveal hidden truths, KV-55 is one of the most haunting examples. Behind the pale skin and blonde hair is a story not just of a man, but of a family imploding under the weight of its own sacred blood. Buried beneath the golden sands of southern Egypt lies a mural that defies everything we thought we knew about the ancient world. In the depths of Tomb 100, at Hierakonpolis, one of Egypt's oldest ceremonial tombs, faint brushstrokes over 5,000 years old whisper of a mystery no one can quite explain. Painted long before the rise of pharaohs, before pyramids touched the sky, or hieroglyphs were carved into stone, the wall reveals a surreal scene, ceremonial boats, figures in procession, and towering above them all, enormous human-like beings. These are not exaggerations. They are drawn deliberately, looming over others in size, posture, and presence, some wielding weapons, others standing with arms outstretched as if commanding the scene. The contrast is stark, unmistakable. They do not blend in, they dominate, and their size is not merely symbolic. It dares us to ask, were these gods, legends, or something far more real? Scholars have named it the boats and giants motif, a label that only hints at the mystery it holds. Found in one of the earliest sacred centers of Upper Egypt, it opens a strange window into a forgotten age, an age that may have remembered something we've long chosen to forget. Because if the ancients really did see giants and they painted them beside vessels too small to carry them, then what else is history not telling us? What do you think those giant figures really represent? Were they mythical gods, symbolic rulers, or remnants of something history has buried? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's see how many of you believe there's more to this story than we've been told. Let us turn our eyes directly to the wall painting itself. The tomb's frescoes depict scenes of warfare, ceremony, animals, and boats rich in symbolism. Yet amid the dense iconography, the eye is drawn toward human figures, rendered at radically different scales. Some stand head and shoulders above others. In particular, there are central characters, clearly human in form, but 2 to 3 times taller than adjacent figures, often with outstretched arms or weapons positioned prominently atop or beside the boats. In ancient art, scale often equals importance. So are these simply leaders or deities shown in hieratic scale? That's the mainstream interpretation. However, what makes this motif especially curious is the consistent repeated emphasis on giant stature, not just as a symbolic device, but in ways that suggest bodily interaction with their surroundings. These giant figures are not floating spirits or abstract symbols. They stand, walk, fight, and command. They are embedded in the same visual space and reality as the normal-sized people. More puzzling still, the boats themselves are drawn with careful precision, long hulls, prows, and oars that match known examples of early Nile watercraft. The scale of the boats compared to the giant figures raises a disturbing spatial question. Would such giants even fit on these vessels? In some cases, the answer is no. They are too large, standing next to or behind the boat, as if unable to embark. What are we really looking at? To many Egyptologists, the answer lies in religious or political symbolism. The larger figures could represent gods or powerful tribal leaders, their size metaphorical, depicting dominance, prestige, or divinity. But even within the symbolic framework, one must ask, why were these particular individuals given such extreme proportions? And why in a tomb so ancient, so early in Egyptian cultural evolution? Alternative researchers, meanwhile, have long seized on this imagery as potential evidence of prehistoric giants. From ancient Sumerian texts that describe the Anunnaki to biblical Nephilim and giant kings of Bashan, the idea of enormous beings walking the earth in ancient times is a recurring theme across civilizations. Could the Hierakonpolis mural be Egypt's visual contribution to this global mythos? While mainstream academia remains skeptical, pointing out the lack of giant skeletal remains in the region, they also admit that pre-dynastic Egyptian art is among the least understood domains of ancient archaeology. The Hierakonpolis figures are particularly baffling because they appear so early before Egypt developed the standard iconographic rules of scale and proportion. In other words, these depictions may not have been bound by later conventions. What if in this early phase, people simply painted what they saw? Equally important in the mural are the boats themselves. They're not casual vessels, but elaborately drawn crafts that seem to serve a ceremonial or mythological function. In later Egyptian religion, boats play a central role in the journey of the soul. The solar bark of Ra, for example, carries the sun god through the underworld each night. The imagery at Hierakonpolis may be a precursor to that later cosmology, or even a forgotten older myth of beings who journeyed across dimensions or across oceans. Some theorists suggest the boats represent not physical transportation, but metaphysical ones, ships of the gods carrying celestial or divine entities between worlds. If so, then who are the giants, travelers from another realm? Deified ancestors, survivors of an older, now extinct lineage of humanity. Interestingly, The boats and giants motif is not unique to Egypt. Similar visual patterns, oversized humanoid figures in association with boats or ceremonial structures, appear in Mesopotamian art, in some petroglyphs of the Sahara, and even in pre-Columbian South American carvings. Could these be parallel expressions of the same archetype, or do they point to a deeper, perhaps shared memory across ancient humanity? Joseph Campbell, the mythologist, once wrote that recurring mythological patterns may stem from archetypes embedded in the collective human psyche. But others, including researchers of forbidden archaeology, wonder whether these similarities reflect an actual chapter of history long lost, a time when giants walked the earth remembered only in sacred art. Critics of the giant hypothesis quickly point out the absence of physical remains. Despite the grandeur of the tomb paintings, no skeletal evidence of giant humans has been found in Hierakonpolis. However, it's worth noting that Tomb 100 is not a burial site for a giant, it is a painted chamber. The painting may preserve a story, not a body. It could represent a cultural memory, a mythologized history, or an idealized ancestor. Moreover, many early Egyptian tombs were looted or destroyed millennia ago. Bones do not preserve well in all climates, especially if interred in shallow, unsealed environments. Some argue that if giants once existed, they may have died out or interbred into smaller populations, leaving behind no intact skeletons, but traces in legend, symbols, and art. The boats and giants motif at Hierakonpolis remains one of the most tantalizing and mysterious artifacts from ancient Egypt's dawn. Whether it represents gods' metaphors or literal giants, it challenges our assumptions about the worldview of early humans. It forces us to ask uncomfortable questions. How much do we really know about humanity's distant past? What did the first civilizations remember, and what did they forget? The giant figures standing tall beside boats that cannot hold them may not just be artistic exaggerations. They might be visual echoes of something or someone that once stood above the rest. In the end, it may not matter whether the giants of Hierakonpolis were real or not. What matters is that someone thought they were worth painting. Someone remembered them, and they remembered them as giants. Far beyond the reach of most travelers, hidden in the icy silence of Russia's White Sea, lies an island where the past still spirals underfoot. On Bolshoi Zayatsky Island, windswept, desolate, and steeped in fog, ancient stones form mysterious labyrinths unlike anything else in Europe. They don't lead anywhere. They don't protect anything. And yet, they endure. More than 30 of these spiraling stone formations have been discovered across the Solovetsky archipelago, but it's this isolated cluster that continues to defy explanation. Archaeologists study them, astronomers measure them, mystics walk them, and still no one truly knows. Were these stones meant to guide the living or speak to something beyond time? Their patterns whisper of a vanished world, one that left no words, only stone. What do you think these stone labyrinths were built for? Were they meant to guide ancient travelers, send off the dead, or chart the stars above? Drop your theory in the comments below. We'd love to hear your take on this Arctic enigma. At first glance, the stone labyrinths on Bolshoi Zayatsky Island may seem simple, just low rows of rocks spiraling across the grass like a giant game abandoned in a meadow. But upon closer inspection, an astonishing level of complexity emerges. Many of the structures feature double spiral designs, closely resembling coiled rope, or even the shape of DNA strands. Each stone is placed with such precision that it suggests the builders possessed a deep understanding of geometry, symmetry, and possibly even astronomy. The regular, tightly connected spirals across space indicate that these are not random constructions, but rather a deliberate system of thought symbolism or measurement, whose meaning has been lost to time. Unlike the towering stone walls of ancient fortresses or the practical roads of old cities, the labyrinths on Bolshoi Zayatsky Island were not built to shelter, defend, or serve daily life. They aren't tall enough to block anyone or anything, nor do they lead to any clear destination. So why did our ancestors invest such great effort into creating these strange, spiraling stone formations? The answer may lie more in spiritual depth than physical function. Many researchers believe these were ritual structures used in rites of passage, funerary ceremonies, or ancient magical practices. Others suggest that the layout and orientation of the labyrinths may align with solar positions, transforming this remote site into a prehistoric observatory, a mysterious northern Stonehenge. Some of the labyrinths on Bolshoi Zayatsky Island have been found to be precisely aligned with the sunrise or sunset during the solstices, a detail far too specific to be mere coincidence. This suggests that these structures may have functioned as solar calendars or even as star maps that mirrored celestial movements. For ancient communities whose survival depended on seasonal rhythms and weather patterns, tracking cosmic cycles was not just philosophical, it was vital for food preparation, migration, or avoiding natural disasters. The spiral stone paths might have served as visual teaching tools or as a form of connection to the cosmic order, where humans, the sun, and time were seen as parts of an eternal cycle. Beyond the astronomical and survival-based theories, there is a deeper, more spiritual interpretation. The spiral shape symbolizes the soul's journey after death, from the physical world to the invisible realm. Each coil represents a transition, a layer of transformation, or a cycle of rebirth. This perspective is further supported by the presence of burial mounds, stone circles, and upright standing stones surrounding the labyrinths, forming a large-scale ritual landscape. Archaeologists estimate that this entire complex dates back 3,000 to 4,000 years, from the late Stone Age to the early Bronze Age. Of all the mysteries surrounding the Bolshoi Zayatsky stone labyrinths, the most profound and haunting question remains: who built them? There are no writings, no names, no carved symbols, no clear trace of the identity or culture of the people who once lived here. They might have been fishermen, shamans, or members of an ancient tribe that has completely vanished. Even today, no genetic lineage can be definitively linked to them. It's as if an entire worldview was erased, leaving behind only silent stones. Some researchers believe that these stone labyrinths were not merely symbolic or spiritual. They may have been survival codes encoded into physical structures. According to this theory, the spirals weren't meant to confuse, but rather to function as memory systems for tracking seasonal fishing times, migratory patterns, or preparing for climate changes, especially crucial in the harsh Arctic environment. The alignment of the labyrinths with points on the horizon might have helped mark time, acting like an ancient solar calendar. And since these early communities lacked written language, they may have relied on ritual and spatial design for collective memory. In that sense, the labyrinths became pre-literate memory banks where vital survival knowledge was preserved through ceremony, not text. If the stone labyrinths served only practical purposes, like marking time or signaling seasonal changes, then why were they designed with such intricate spirals, perfect symmetry, and placed within ceremonial landscapes, even burial grounds? This question points to a deeper theory that the labyrinths were not merely tools, but a form of monumental language encoded not through sound or script, but through shapes built to endure for millennia. Perhaps they were created to communicate across generations, or even to send messages to civilizations the builders would never meet. Unlike carvings or inkstones survive. Perhaps the builders knew this. As language fades, people move, and time erases detail, the spiral remains. If so, each coil may be a message, each loop a sentence. And the question lingers, what were they trying to say? Some believe the labyrinths are sacred warnings, energy centers, or zones to avoid. Others see cosmic symbolism, mimicking the paths of stars across Arctic skies. Still others view them as remnants of a completely lost way of thinking, where nature, survival spirit, and memory were inseparable. The stones confirm nothing. They deny nothing. They simply endure. Without text, we turn to archaeology, astronomy, and imagination. Perhaps this was the goal all along, that long after their builders vanished, we would still follow their spiral paths, still asking, still wondering. Whether these labyrinths are maps of the sky or survival codes of the earth, they whisper the same truth, that once people lived here. They watched the same sun rise and fall. They feared the same storms. And they left us a message, not in ink or fire, but in stone. And that message, though undeciphered, still echoes. They rise like giants from the Bosnian earth, perfect slopes, razor-sharp angles, and ancient tunnels buried deep beneath their feet. But are we staring at the ruins of a forgotten civilization, or just being fooled by the shapes of stone and shadow? In the heart of Bosnia, the hills of Visoko have become the center of a global mystery. To some, they are the world's oldest and largest pyramids, built by an advanced culture lost to history. To others, they're nothing more than geological illusions, hijacked by pseudoscience and driven by tourism. Archaeologists call it nonsense. Tourists call it magic. And somewhere in between lies a story of ambition, controversy, and a question that refuses to die. Are the Bosnian pyramids one of humanity's greatest hidden achievements, or one of archaeology's most elaborate illusions? What do you think about the Bosnian pyramids? Are they evidence of a lost civilization, or just a spectacular misunderstanding of natural geology? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd really love to hear your perspective. The story begins in 2005, when Bosnian-American businessman and self-styled archaeologist Semir Osmanagic made headlines by declaring that a series of hills surrounding Visoko were not natural formations, but in fact colossal pyramids built by an unknown civilization tens of thousands of years ago. According to him, the main structure, Visočica Hill, was actually the Pyramid of the Sun, measuring over 220 meters high, thereby surpassing even the Great Pyramid of Giza in size. Osmanagic later added claims of additional pyramids nearby, naming them after celestial bodies such as the Moon, Earth, Love, and the Dragon, forming a complex allegedly aligned with astronomical principles. What lent initial credence to Osmanagic's claims was the shape of the hills themselves. The Pyramid of the Sun exhibits remarkably straight sides, a nearly symmetrical triangular face, and what appears to be a precise orientation to the cardinal directions. From aerial photography, the formation does resemble a geometric pyramid. For many lay observers, the idea that such a structure could exist unnoticed for centuries seemed both thrilling and plausible. Beneath the surface, things became even more intriguing. Excavation efforts led by Osmanagic's team revealed what he described as man-made stone blocks, terraces, and artificial tunnels. The most dramatic discovery was a sprawling network of underground passages known as the Ravna tunnels, allegedly connecting the pyramids. Within these tunnels, Osmanagic claimed to find massive ceramic stones, some engraved with markings and weighing several tons. According to his estimates, these features date back as far as 30,000 years, challenging mainstream understandings of prehistoric civilization. The idea of a forgotten advanced civilization buried beneath the hills of Europe captured the public imagination. International volunteers flocked to the excavation sites. Tourists came in droves, hoping to touch ancient walls, breathe the healing air of the tunnels, and reconnect with a lost past. Local authorities, eyeing economic opportunity, lent tentative support to the project in its early years, helping promote the site as a unique tourist attraction. But as the media spotlight grew brighter, so too did the scrutiny. This is where the narrative begins to fracture. Despite the elaborate claims and media frenzy, no credible peer-reviewed scientific evidence has ever confirmed the existence of a man-made pyramid structure in Visoko. On the contrary, numerous geologists, archaeologists, and historians from respected institutions across Europe and the world have categorically rejected Osmanagic's conclusions. In 2006, the European Association of Archaeologists, EAA, issued a formal statement declaring the Bosnian pyramids to be a hoax, warning that the so-called excavations were damaging legitimate archaeological sites and misleading the public. Many pointed out that Osmanagic lacks formal training in archaeology, and that his interpretations of the findings are based more on speculation and confirmation bias than scientific method. Independent studies conducted by professional geologists have thoroughly analyzed the structure of the hills. Their findings indicate that Vysočina Hill and the surrounding area consist of natural sedimentary formations, including layers of conglomerate and sandstone typical of the region's natural geological processes. What Osmanagic describes as man-made blocks are in fact naturally fractured rock strata, and the tunnels are believed by many to be a mix of old mining shafts and modern enlargements created during his excavations. Additionally, radiocarbon dating of organic materials found at the site has failed to support the hypothesis of an ancient construction period. No artifacts, inscriptions, or tools typically associated with ancient human construction have been found in context with the so-called pyramid structures. The claims of energy fields, healing vibrations, and other metaphysical effects within the tunnels, often touted by Osmanagic, further reduce the scientific credibility of the project. Many in the scientific community view these assertions as part of a broader attempt to attract spiritual tourists rather than evidence-based researchers. Perhaps most concerning is that the continued excavation conducted without adherence to professional archaeological standards risks destroying genuine historical layers, including known medieval and Roman sites in the Visoko Valley. Critics argue that instead of preserving Bosnia's authentic cultural heritage, the Pyramid Project has prioritized sensationalism over substance. Still, Osmanagic and his supporters remain steadfast. They argue that mainstream science is resistant to paradigm-shifting discoveries, clinging to outdated models, and dismissing alternative views. They often draw comparisons to other once-dismissed archaeological sites like Göbekli Tepe, which later turned out to be revolutionary. However, these comparisons are misleading. Göbekli Tepe was discovered by trained archaeologists, excavated systematically, and backed by extensive, peer-reviewed research. In contrast, the Bosnian pyramids lack any form of rigorous scientific validation, with most findings presented through media and public lectures rather than academic journals. This has created a deep divide. On one side, a growing body of scientific professionals demanding evidence transparency and peer-reviewed methodology. On the other, a movement of alternative researchers and enthusiasts embracing the mystery, the myth, and the tourism opportunity it brings. Despite the academic rejection, the Bosnian pyramids remain a popular destination. Pilgrims of ancient mysteries, spiritual healers, and amateur explorers continue to visit the Ravna tunnels and climb the pyramid slopes. For the local economy, the influx of tourists has provided a lifeline to a region still recovering from the scars of war. For many, the pyramid phenomenon is less about truth and more about hope, wonder, and belief in something bigger than ourselves. But for the academic world, it remains a cautionary tale about how easily misinformation can spread, how pseudoscience can overshadow genuine history, and how complex the battle between evidence and ideology has become in the modern age. The Bosnian pyramids are not just a geological oddity, they are a mirror reflecting our fascination with lost civilizations, our hunger for mystery, and our willingness to believe in the extraordinary. Whether they are natural formations rebranded as ancient wonders or genuine remnants of a forgotten epoch, one truth is certain without rigorous, verifiable science. Extraordinary claims cannot be accepted as historical fact. Until proven otherwise, through universally accepted methods, controlled excavations, peer-reviewed data, and scholarly consensus, the Bosnian pyramids remain at best a captivating curiosity, and at worst, a reminder of how easily myth can masquerade as history in the absence of evidence. No one would have guessed that in the dry, desolate deserts of Nevada, where only rocks, dust, and centuries of silence remain there, lies a secret powerful enough to shake the very foundations of human history. Lovelock Cave, a small and seemingly insignificant crevice near the Humboldt Sink, was once thought to be nothing more than a forgotten bat cave. But inside, according to early 20th century reports and shocking discoveries, were said to be human remains standing over 9 feet tall, nearly 2.7 meters giants, for which modern science still has no official explanation. But the story doesn't end with oversized bones. It ties into ancient Native American legends, mysterious artifacts that have vanished without a trace, and a series of massive unanswered questions that have lingered for over a century. Was this all just a case of archaeological misinterpretation, or could it be a missing piece of human history that someone or something wanted forgotten? The answer, if it exists, might still be buried beneath the dust of Nevada. What do you think about this story? Were giants once real inhabitants of Nevada, or is it just an exaggerated legend? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't hold back on your wildest theories. We read every single comment. In the early 20th century, while mining bat guano in a remote cave in Nevada, later known as Lovelock Cave, a group of miners stumbled upon one of the most controversial archaeological discoveries in American history. As they shoveled out the guano to sell as fertilizer, they reportedly encountered fragments of enormous human bones, some with unusually large skulls, and most strikingly sandals measuring up to 15 inches, about 38 centimeters, far larger than what would be expected for any known native population. Several skeletons, though incomplete, were said to belong to individuals over 7 feet tall, with some accounts claiming heights over 9 feet, about 2.7 meters. Alongside the bones were mysterious artifacts unlike anything seen in known indigenous cultures, leaving the miners and early witnesses baffled and even frightened. This discovery sparked a profound question. Could an actual race of giants have once lived here? What makes the story of the Lovelock giants especially hard to ignore is its striking similarity to an ancient legend of the Paiute people, a Native American tribe that has lived in Nevada for thousands of years. According to oral traditions passed down through generations, the Paiute once fought against a mysterious race known as the CT-Ka, red-haired giant-like beings with violent temperaments who were cannibalistic. These creatures did not coexist peacefully. They often attacked other tribes, spreading fear across the region. The legend says that after enduring years of terror, the surrounding tribes united, drove the CT-Ka into a cave, and sealed the entrance before setting it ablaze killing everyone inside. What's most remarkable is that the location described in this legend, the final fiery end of the red-haired giants, matches almost exactly the present-day site of Lovelock Cave. This eerie overlap raises a chilling question. Could this ancient tale actually be a real historical memory encoded in folklore? In 1911, professional archaeologists began investigating Lovelock Cave, recovering more than 10,000 artifacts, including duck decoys, fishing gear tools, and a variety of woven materials. Some human remains were discovered, including skulls, larger than average, but the majority of mainstream researchers attributed the anomalies to natural variation or misidentification. Over time, many of the bones and unusual items vanished into private collections or were lost, leaving behind only blurry photos, secondhand reports, and a growing cloud of speculation. What keeps the mystery of the Lovelock giants alive isn't just the alleged oversized skeletons, which are now no longer publicly accessible, but rather the fact that no clear, definitive scientific conclusion has ever been made. While some skulls were examined by the Nevada State Museum and deemed to belong to individuals of normal size, many independent researchers insist that the most crucial bone fragments were removed, hidden, or simply vanished. And what's most astonishing is that for over a century, there has been no significant modern investigation, no forensic analysis, DNA testing, or radiocarbon dating conducted on the remaining remains. Why have mainstream scientists remained so strangely silent, especially when contemporary newspapers, eyewitness accounts, and even early museum records described human bones with highly unusual dimensions? Is there a deeper reason why this topic is avoided? Or is it simply an uncomfortable gap in scientific history, one that no one dares to explore? The core issue isn't just the question, did giants really exist, but rather why, after more than 100 years, that question remains unanswered. In an era where technology can decode Egyptian mummies, reconstruct ancient faces, and even recover genomes millions of years old, why has a mystery buried in American soil been left untouched? Perhaps the most unsettling thing isn't the possible existence of giants, but the fact that no one is willing to officially confirm or deny it. Even within academic circles, the story of the Lovelock giants has sparked intense controversy and divided opinions. Many skeptical scholars argue that it's simply the result of exaggeration and flawed science from the early 20th century, a time when archaeological standards were still undeveloped and sensational stories were often fueled by newspapers to attract readers. They point out that no 9-foot human skeleton has ever been officially verified or publicly displayed. However, supporters of the mystery argue the opposite, that the disappearance of key evidence, such as the largest skulls or longest bones, is exactly what's suspicious and may even suggest a deliberate act of suppression. The prolonged silence from the scientific community has given rise to countless theories, some strange, others more plausible, surrounding the Lovelock giants. Some independent researchers believe they may have been remnants of an ancient race, one that once coexisted with Native Americans but was entirely wiped out after a brutal struggle for survival. Others lean toward the idea of genetic anomalies, individuals born with unique genes that resulted in extraordinary physical growth. Going beyond the bounds of conventional science, more radical theories link the Lovelock giants to the lost civilization of Atlantis, the Nephilim of the Bible, or even hybrids from an extraterrestrial origin. Though no solid evidence has surfaced, the persistence of these theories underscores one undeniable truth: we still know far too little about our true past. Perhaps the most haunting part of the Lovelock Cave story is how it forces us to confront the limits of our historical knowledge. When myth and material evidence intersect and no final verdict is given, it leaves a vacuum that speculation is all too eager to fill. The giants of Nevada remain both a symbol of our desire to uncover hidden histories and a reminder of how quickly the past can be lost, distorted, or buried, sometimes literally. So we are left with a few photos, scattered notes, old mining accounts, and the stubborn memory of a Paiute legend. The cave still exists. The artifacts once existed. But the truth that remains elusive. And perhaps that's the most fascinating part of all, not the giants themselves, but the giant question mark they leave behind. What if everything we know about ancient history is missing a chapter? Buried deep beneath the volcanic soil of central Mexico, archaeologists uncovered a tomb filled with native Mesoamerican artifacts, ceramics, tools, relics of a lost world. But then something impossible surfaced. A small terracotta head, with curled hair, a high-bridged nose, a sculpted beard. Not Aztec, not Maya, but unmistakably Greco-Roman. Thousands of miles from the Mediterranean and centuries before Columbus, this lone artifact raises a staggering question. How did a classical European statue end up in an ancient Mexican tomb? Is it a hoax, a mistake, or the strongest evidence yet that ancient civilizations crossed oceans long before we thought possible? Welcome to the mystery of the Tekaxic-Calixtlahuaca head, a discovery so bizarre, so out of place, it might rewrite the boundaries of the ancient world. But now, we want to hear from you. Do you believe this artifact is genuine, clear evidence that ancient transoceanic contact may have happened long before Columbus? Or do you think it's just a case of misplacement, or even a modern forgery buried by accident or design? Drop your theories in the comments below. Every idea counts, because with mysteries like this, even the smallest insight could change how we see history forever. In 1933, during an archaeological excavation at the Tekaxic-Calixtlahuaca site in the northern highlands of the state of Mexico, Mexican archaeologist José García Payón unearthed a series of ancient tombs. Among the artifacts recovered were pottery tools and objects typical of Mesoamerican cultures. But amidst these native items, researchers found something that clearly didn't belong: a small, partially damaged terracotta head depicting a bearded man with curly hair, sculpted in a style that looked remarkably classical and European. The artifact was later dubbed the Tekaxic-Calixtlahuaca head, and it has since become the center of one of the most heated debates about the possibility of pre-Columbian transoceanic contact. What makes this artifact particularly shocking isn't just where it was found, but rather how it was made, the artistic style it reflects. While the pre-Columbian cultures of Mexico, such as the Maya, Aztec, or Toltec, had their own distinctive sculptural styles, typically characterized by religious symbolism, geometric patterns, and abstract human forms, this head sculpture stands in complete contrast. It portrays the face of a man with unmistakably European features, a high-bridged nose, curled beard, deep-set eyes, and hair rendered in flowing waves. Most notably, the sculpting technique reflects a classical aesthetic mindset, with an emphasis on harmony, detail, and near-realistic representation. These elements led many researchers to confidently state that the artifact exhibits a Greco-Roman sculptural style which should not and cannot naturally occur in ancient Mesoamerica. Many art historians have compared the head to Roman sculptures from the 2nd to 3rd centuries AD. Features such as the contour of the nose, the styling of the hairline, and especially the expression and shape of the beard are nearly impossible to find in any known Mesoamerican artistic tradition. If this really is an authentic artifact from the Greco-Roman world, then it's not just foreign to the Americas, it's utterly impossible to exist there without a transoceanic journey taking place well before Columbus. Since the discovery of the Tekaxik-Kalixtlahuaca head, one controversial question has persisted in the archaeological world. Is this truly an ancient artifact, or simply a modern European object that somehow ended up mixed into a native burial site? What seems like a straightforward question has fueled decades of debate, because if the artifact is authentic, it could fundamentally shake our traditional understanding of intercontinental history. To clarify the issue in 2001, two researchers, Romeo Hristov, University of New Mexico, and Santiago Genovese National Autonomous University of Mexico, re-examined the artifact using original excavation records and stylistic analysis. They concluded that the head was not a later intrusion, but had been buried intact within the same archaeological layer as the other Mesoamerican artifacts, strongly suggesting that its presence was original to the site's historical context. Furthermore, additional analyses of its crafting techniques and clay composition revealed a striking similarity to Mediterranean artifacts from classical antiquity, especially those of the Roman Empire. However, because the head is made of inorganic terracotta and lacks organic material, radiocarbon dating methods could not be applied. As a result, all conclusions rely on stylistic evaluation, archaeological context, and logical inference, an indirect but widely accepted method in cases where direct dating is not possible. With the evidence currently available, the academic community remains divided. Yet one thing is clear: the Tekaxik-Kalixtlahuaca head cannot be easily dismissed, for it presents a profound challenge to the way we define the seemingly fixed boundaries of history. If this head truly originates from the Roman world and wasn't accidentally introduced later, the implications are staggering. It would suggest that Romans, or at least Mediterranean traders, might have crossed the Atlantic and reached the Americas thousands of years before Columbus. While this idea remains fringe in mainstream archaeology, it's not without precedent. Historians have long debated the possibility of early transoceanic voyages by the Phoenicians, Carthaginians, or even Norse seafarers like the Vikings. Could a Roman merchant ship blown off course, or drifting after a storm, have reached the shores of ancient Latin America? We can't say for certain, but if that scenario proves true, the Tekaxik-Kalixtlahuaca head would be one of the earliest archaeological proofs of interaction between the old and new worlds. Of course, not everyone accepts the theory of ancient transatlantic contact. Some archaeologists argue that the head was brought to Mexico by a European during the colonial period and somehow ended up mistakenly buried within a pre-Hispanic context. But if that's the case, why is there no documentation or trace of modern interference? And more importantly, how could the artifact align so well with the tomb's age archaeological layer and cultural surroundings? Others suggest it could be a prank or a modern replica intentionally planted to confuse scientists. Yet after nearly a century, no one has ever come forward to support this theory, and no clear evidence has emerged to debunk the original excavation report. To this day, the Tekaxik-Kalixtlahuaca head remains one of Mexico's greatest archaeological mysteries, a focal point for discussions about the possibility of early contact between the Old World and the New World. Its Greco-Roman sculptural style, found deep in the Mexican highlands, challenges not only our understanding of ancient migration, but also how we perceive human history itself, not as isolated civilizations, but as a potentially interconnected web, far older than we ever imagined. Could it be that the Romans, the Phoenicians, or even older civilizations once set foot in the Americas? Could what we consider mainstream history only be the tip of the iceberg? The Tekaxik-Kalixtlahuaca head remains a misplaced piece of the puzzle, still waiting for its answer.